Live. We are live. I am. Oh man, I have to be like. I'm 2 seconds early. Would you believe it? 2 seconds early. Welcome to the Sunday service. It is 2 p.m. on this Sunday, the 28th of February, and week 279 million of lockdown. We have been stuck. Send help. We can't go outside or go anywhere. Thank you very much for joining in again today. There's quite a few of you in here at the moment. If you wouldn't mind clicking the like button, would be absolutely wonderful, while everyone else gets themselves together enough to be able to, ask a question or two. Just plug it in my phone so I charge it up while I'm sitting here. It's always good to keep your phone charged. I have a habit of doing that. I never run out of charge. Every once in a while I just plug it in. It's just like random stuff. I don't really think about whether it needs a charge or not. Good to have everybody aboard. I haven't taken out. So what happens is I pop out the chat from the browser window and it loses the chat that came in early. So it just goes, nah, nobody before 2 o'clock exists. So I just left that attached. I was going to move it over here in a minute ago. Luca Cullen's very excited. At 1:30. Terence says at the beginning, hi Bob, interesting piece about buckled wheel. Great to spend staycation or stay safe or stay in your house. Whatever the horrible word is people use these days. They're going somewhere. If we ever get out of lockdown, I have to say the lads on a buckled wheel did a massive job there. They just let me loose in that place just to do whatever I want to do, which is great. It's David and the guys down there. If you want to pop down there in Tipperary, I'll have to link on that video to buckledwheel.ie. I know they're a little bit snowed under when the Instagram post came out and the TikToks and the video itself has come out as well. Video didn't get as much traction, probably because it doesn't say forward something or other in it, or Scud or whatever. And that's okay. It'll gather pace as we get closer and people feel better about being out of lockdown. Which of course Ireland expressed itself yesterday, a little bit of an expression of people in a protest in Dublin about being stuck on lockdown. It seemed to be just an expression of panic, of just frustration, I think, in everybody. Unfortunately, it did get out of hand with fireworks being fired directly at Gardaí, who were just there to keep the peace, keep everybody separate. And we're doing a nice job at seeing at the beginning of the video until someone fired a firework straight at them, which changed the situation entirely from what looked like relative calm to complete chaos. Which is fair enough, that's okay. These things happen, we can't... that's what we pay people for, it's why the Gardaí are there, it's what their job is, but it still makes them a little bit harder. Let's hope the result of that lockdown protest is not more lockdown, which is my problem. I want to get out of lockdown and do something with the family. We actually, the kids and the wife just really want to go up Sleep Blue Mountain, or just go somewhere that isn't within a 5k zone so they can go outside that 5k. That'd be nice. Anyway, Jay is from the UK. Jason Thompson, J.O. is in from the house. He says in the house, come on. Damien Glasheen says, who is a lovely channel member. I can see it. It comes up, their names come up, special colours, all kinds of things happen. Afternoon, Bob. Sure, what else about fuel prices? Question is, anyone tested a large solar panel to charge a vehicle, and the theory of vehicle running on water? So running on water won't hurt, but hydrogen is where the running on water bit comes out. I don't think we're going to be running on water. If that was the case, honest to God, can you imagine it? We'd have to get salt things to take the hardness out of water so we put it into cars. But it'd be brilliant if we could. That'd be nice. If anyone's investigating how to run a car on water and needs to know how to do it, please, God, send me the information so I can stick it into my car. But the solar panels very much depend on the amount of sun. Solar panels are very effective in broad daylight or very bright sun. You can get a trickle charge when it's cloudy. But the most efficient way to have them is the more sun, the better. Now, at this time of the year, in this country, we get a bit more sun. Today is a beautifully sunny day, but tomorrow could be an overcast, dull day, and we only get 5 or 6 hours of sun. And in deep winter here, you're talking about 4 hours, 4.5 hours of anything useful sunlight on a house. The problem is square footage, the technicalities behind it, and then load. So the load you want to do. The simplest way to do it, it's still very expensive. The simplest way to do it is to hook up a set of solar panels to the roof of the house that is charging a battery. Tesla called this a power wall, but there's various other versions of it, but it's really expensive. You may never see it back in the value of your house. You may never see the return of how much you spent putting it in the first place, but in that you could technically charge a big battery, and that big battery could charge your car, your electric car, so technically you'd be off grid. But again, in this country we've already got it sewn up. The ESB does have what's called a standing charge, must be paid by everyone no matter how much electricity you use. Dermot Crooks, thank you very much for sending some money by PayPal. Very kind of you. We love you people, you know that. We really do. You're like the best fans in the world. In case you didn't notice, that there on my chest is the new logo. There is merch coming out next week. bobflavin.com will be the website where the merch will be sold. We're actually going to stock it, so I'm in control of the quality of this. This is the workwear one. There's going to be a kind of a loungewear, kind of thicker, heavier version of it as well. Hats. We have some neck things, which I don't know where I put my one. I had it a minute ago. It's gone now. Kids are probably gone with it. We've hats and stickers and things coming as well. So there's a few little bits of these coming. That'll be on bobflavin.com next week. At some point, once I actually sort out the shop, which is all done through Shopify and everything. We're trying to do it all the easiest way possible for you guys to get stuff you want to. Raymond Grace, thank you very much for making a donation. Your donation is greatly appreciated. You're very kind. Andy FX7 is here as well. Hi Bob and gang, have a great afternoon. Catch up later this evening. Come on, thank you Andy. Robert Mulhall, good afternoon everyone from Madrid. The MG seems to be making positive waves. It is, because it's cheap. It's a good car. It is a reasonably priced car, which is the most important part of that car, is that it puts at least some form of range into you that you can use on a daily basis in the shape of a sort of small SUV with most of the kit that you'd expect in an SUV, and then you're left with an electric car underneath. It doesn't shout about being electric. It's not in your face EV. It's just an EV that does a fairly good job at getting you around the place. We've had no problems with it, none. The wife has driven to the shop multiple times, but we haven't done much mileage. We're really not going very far to really put it to the test, and the infrastructure seems to be catching up a little bit, and a little bit. It'll get there eventually in the end once it gets some more competition in the market. Irish Foxhound, afternoon all, will there be something in the pipeline for houses that have on-street parking, even in houses instead? Yes, which brings me to neatly to the one question of the day, and you see it on the corner of the screen over here. There, EV Ready has sponsored this. EV Ready is Des Mulhare, who is a long-term friend of what he's installed my home charger here. He's done loads of technical stuff behind the scene about electric cars and electric stuff for me. He even did a talk with me. And was that last year? I think it was last year, down in Athlone, where we did the open night for people to come along to and just have a chat about EV stuff. And Des, in that respect, has come up with a plan that he's trying to get. He's working with the county councils to be able to do this, to be able to dig a trench between, across areas, whatever you want to do with it, on under a footpath or whatever. So the trench and the cabling would follow the trench from your house out onto the street and would pop up on street side. So you just plug in directly outside your front door, but it doesn't have to be your parking space. Obviously, it helps if it's your parking space, but it doesn't have to be it. It's just a charge point attached to your house. And of course, with EV Ready, what Des is doing with EV Box as well is the ability to be able to have a fob, which I use. I have a fob that I can charge with, but the fob now is going to get extended to be able to use for public charging as well. So, and this is exclusive kind of Des stuff. So you need to get in touch with EV Ready for this one. But what that means is you're going to have a fob that you can use at home, but when you go to a public charge point, you can also use the same fob. It'll just build your house. Simple as that. Really, you pay one rate the whole time, and that's pretty clever. That's coming from EV Box through EV Ready. So get in touch with EV Ready if you can as well. He's made some nice little video as well. Look, this is good. Hold on a second. Cut over that. Isn't that good? It's all coming. This is all coming. Literally, EV Ready is on the way. It's going to be quite big. It's going to be something you're going to hear about an awful lot over the next while, and I'm going to be working with them too on a few little projects along the way. So we're all going to be working together. So if you can get in touch with EV Ready if you have any questions about just questions, if you want to ask some questions, just ask Des some questions. It's fine. Like he's not going to go mad charging money. Eric Rochers here. Afternoon all, great to see the lovely weather. It's lovely, isn't it? I was out for a run this morning. I was out for 6.5k this morning. A nice trotty trot. Didn't really get out of breath very much, but it was one of those not tempo run. What do you call it? A base run or something you call them. A nice slow run for chill out. Brendan Duffy's here as well. Hope we had a good week. I had a lovely week. I had a very busy week. I don't know what happened the week. It seemed to just fly by. I got up on Monday and then suddenly it was Friday. You know that kind of thing? Really weird sort of week. Niall McHugh is here as well. Raymond Grace as well. Afternoon, Bob, on a glorious spring day here in Mulgar. Spring, I know, it's only spring. It feels like summer. When I was out running there today, I could feel the heat on my face with the sunshine. It's beautiful. Get a bit of vitamin D in you. I do take a vitamin D supplement. Anyone who's even considering it, you should definitely. It has made me feel insulated from the world. And I mean insulated in just a nice, I don't get annoyed or fed up or not. Just I'm up and go all the time. That's just one little spray in the morning. It's really cheap to get in a health food store. Buy the spray, don't buy the tablets or uses. Oisin Walsh is here as well. Automotive Trace Martin, afternoon everyone. Nearly missed to start watching the footy. Oh, the footy, there's football on. I don't watch football. Don't know. Did you ever see the rugby match though? Yesterday. We won, and then Wales won against England as well. Like, it's going to be a busy few weeks coming up. The Veda bus, after all, washing the car in the sun while listening, almost perfect. If you could just play a funky hit every 15 minutes, it'd be great. Oh, cheers, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? I'd love to be able to do music, because I do DJ nights on TikTok, and everybody has a great time. Like, it's full of really happy people doing really cool stuff, but I can't do it on YouTube because of copyright, so they don't allow you to do any of that sort of thing unless it's already on YouTube. Thomas Heiler says 8 a.m. here in New Orleans. Don't know what happened to the first message. I see that you put D-Day, everyone. Don't know what that is. Bob, any news on MG software update sorting the charger were locked? Well, that's the funny bit. That's where that comes apart now, because according to MG UK, or the users and the owners of MGs in UK, there has been an update and all of my problems were fixed. When I contacted MG Ireland, they said there isn't an update. So someone is not communicating with someone else. Now, chances are that MG Ireland is very new to the game. They've just come out of Mitsubishi. The cars are just starting to come into Ireland. They're just starting to get moving in here. So chances are there's a bit of a breakdown in communication there. But I'm certain there is an update, and I'm also certain that I don't have access to it just yet. So I still have the problem with the car, but it's not affecting me right now, because we just charge at the house. We don't really charge on the street, so it'll only really affect me when we want to charge on the street at a charge point and you want to sit in the car while it's charging. You have to lock yourself in the car, which wouldn't make a lot of sense. William Bellingham is here as well. Patrick Walsh, video on buckled wheel was class. You never have known about other birds. That's true, yeah. My wife alerted me to it. She said she's seen something on a newspaper somewhere. And then she said, you got to see this. This is just so cool. Now, that's not a sponsored video, by the way. That's not sponsored at all. That's just me going because I thought it was a super cool thing to do. So I wandered down to have a look. And I thought you guys, or everyone, would be looking for stuff to do once lockdown ends. And a lot of camping things going on. And camper vans cost a fortune at the moment. Caravans have gone up in price as well. And yet those little teardrop camper van things are brilliant. And can be towed on a standard B license. You don't need a special license to tow them, because it's 450 kgs for the small one. And the big one is 850 kgs and it's braked. So you can tow it on an ordinary car. David reassures me he tows it in just an ordinary RAV4. So he's got nothing special, no big off-road vehicle around to do it. Obviously, you want to drag it up a mountain, you can. I wish, the only point I'd have about them is I wish the wheelbase was I wish the tyres weren't quite so wide. If they were a bit narrow, you could actually have more room inside it, David Cuddy's in the house as well. I see the name pop up there on the screen. Oh, some man. The lovely yet amazing David Cuddy is back in the house again. Love you, David. He's like my love child. He's everywhere. Knight Smith. Hi, Bob. Read a well-known magazine yet again criticising Jaguar Land Rover. Surely it's all to do with job losses due to COVID. We should be supporting our manufacturers. Comment, please. Thank you. Yes, I would suggest we should be supporting our manufacturers. But when it comes to car companies, we don't tend to treat them as our manufacturers or as local manufacturers, like Nissan being in Sunderland or Jaguar being in the UK. Because most of the parts it's an assembly plant more than a manufacturing plant. So we don't tend to push out the boat when we're looking at our local guys. We would, of course, like everyone to be supported, but obviously to make good products would be the other part of that the products must be able to stand up to the scrutiny of everybody. So when you see well-known magazines criticising Jaguar Land Rover, if it's job losses, there's nothing much you can do about job losses. This automation is driving that. A lot of automation is driving that within the car companies, but also a lot of automation in everything in the chain of the car companies. So every company that's supplying car company parts to the car company are also automating. So there's job losses everywhere, and it's across entire groups, huge groups of people. So it happens. Damien Eves. Hi Bob, I got an A7 after watching a great video review. Now looking at RS7. Have you driven one? Yes, RS7 video is on my website, on the YouTube channel. It is the best car Audi has ever made. Plus it's also the prettiest looking car Audi's ever made. And that's not normally an Audi thing to make things. They make very handsome things, but they don't tend to make pretty things. But I think the RS7 is absolutely awesome looking. One of my favourite cars of the last 5 to 6 years I've driven, at least, if not more than that. Mini Eggs. Hi Bob, apart from ID Vision, have you heard any more about EV estate cars in the way? Anyone else? Thanks. No. Estates, see, the problem is the market is a small SUV. So car companies are going to respond to what people are buying. And they're buying small SUVs. So they're buying Audi Q3, they're buying Audi Q5, and that's where it's going. Then there's some people buying the bigger Q7, so they're easy to quantify. And the same for BMW X3, X5, X7. The people are buying the X3s at the other end, and even X1 is selling pretty well. So really, if the car companies think they can make more money out of continuing to make small SUVs, that's what they're going to do. When it comes to estate cars, they were never terribly popular in this country, even though I do love them. I think estate cars are a far better thing to buy than an SUV, but yet people don't necessarily want to buy them either because they don't feel the same. So I'm not sure whether we're going to see too many electric estate cars coming out soon. We'll just see the 5-door hatchbacks, the small SUVs, and that's going to be where it's going to be, I reckon, for a while anyway. John Check, thank you very much for a donation by Super Chat. When I charge a Tesla supercharger, I watch Netflix and YouTube videos and eat ice cream. What a wonderful life in Minnesota. I love the idea. I see some people are putting up videos of like destinations. So they're going to a place to charge up to do a video on the services that are available to them there. Isn't that funny? That's new once a video, huh? Bit of coffee going in as well after the run. Derek Norris is here too. Thanks, Derek, for having a spanner attached to your name. Kevin McCarthy, hey Bob, are Audi diesels reliable in general? Looking for a 2014-15 A4 Avant Auto. Any issues around them, year model? No, none at all, really. But you got to remember who buys those kind of cars, Kevin. They tend to be treated fairly hard. Most of the cars of that era in that A4 Avant will be an import. So it's worth doing a history check on them. It's worth going to motorcheck.ie and paying for a history check just to see have they ever been involved in a collision or a crash or written off or any that sort of stuff. But usually reliability comes from whatever way they were treated before you got them. That's really what it comes down to. So you gotta pay attention to the fact of history is everything, you know. Cosmo147, how are you going? Don't remember that name a moment before. I'm after scrolling forward there, sorry. I'll come back down to you now. There he is. Cosmo187, yeah. Cross 13 Mini Eggs MG5, which is actually a Rowe, which is hard to pronounce because the way it's spelled WOEWE. It's a Chinese name. But yeah, the Chinese are going to be pumping out a lot of electric cars over the next while. The Indians will be doing the same thing. There's a lot moving out in that direction because that's where a lot of the components are actually sourced or built, and they have access to larger areas over here than we do. So in Europe, we would manufacture engines, sure, but batteries, not so much. Not as much as other countries would do. We're only starting to build that. Even Tesla haven't opened their Berlin yoke yet, which they were after. Paul S. Hi Bob, have you ever done a review of the Clio E-Tech? No, I was supposed to, Paul, but it got cancelled because of the pandemic. Renault pulled access to all their press cars, and then nobody told me to put them back on. So I have it booked in, but it probably won't be for a while yet. No, but it's a Clio. It's another MHEV or PHEV, and unless you really determined, you won't make them work very well. Like PHEVs need plugging in every day, pretty much every day, depending on your mileage obviously, but even the longer range ones, you find that you're plugging them in. The ones that say they do 30-40 kilometers on a tank, you tend to plug them in a lot more than you would an electric car. To put that in context, when I had a PHEV Passat, I plugged it in every day. I have now charged now that was every day on electric, but now I've charged the MG up 4 times in 3 months. So that'll tell you the difference between charging a PHEV and charging an electric car. I know the ranges are totally different, but PHEVs need to be charged pretty much every day. So I like PHEVs in their own way, but if you really want to get the best of them, you really have to put them in all the time. Constantine Moreau, hey Bob, did you test both BMW 530e plug-in, Mercedes 300e plug-in? Yes, but the Mercedes was a diesel one. Which one has better terms of comfort, EV range? The Mercedes has it on range because it's diesel. It's a 2-litre diesel, so 1,000 kilometers is totally realistic, with the 40 to 60 of that being on electric. But the 530e was petrol, so comfort wise it's just as good, every bit as quiet, every bit as nice to drive, but it's petrol, so it's like silent on the motorway. It doesn't make any noise at all. Both cars are fabulous. Give me money, which one would I buy? I'd buy the Mercedes, just because I like Mercedes E-Class. It would be, you would have to split a hair though. I would, if I stood across from 2 dealership, BMW and Mercedes, I wouldn't know which one to go into, to be honest with you. I'd veer off somewhere else. Keith Colton, afternoon Bob, thanks for giving me something to distract me from writing notes and making videos for my students. Sometimes you gotta have a little distraction. You gotta settle back. It's now Sunday, 28. I know everyone, I do a lot of work on Sunday as well. When do we stop working these days? Like, does anyone actually stop working now? Do you all just take work home and stay there, or what do you do? For me, I just work all the time, or I just seem to do something all the time. Dynamic Frame says, hello Bob, I think as more people work from home, electric cars become more popular, fuel will rise. UK government must get their tax. Will die hard petrols own electric car and a V8 for a weekend? That's what I think is where we're going, is that sort of a main car will be electric car, and you might have something in the background, some sort of Cosworth or something sitting out the back. The big problem is right now, people are starting to move back towards the idea of working and doing something else other than sitting around at home, because we can all feel it. When I was off for a run today, I ran by one of the parks here in Portlaoise, and it's absolutely jammers full of kids and adults, and you know, people are standing around each other and stuff. You can see the need for human companionship is now starting to outweigh the fear of COVID, of anything to do with lockdown. It's starting to get around it, and that's somewhat of a governmental fault and lack of leadership, I suppose, in some ways. In other way, just human nature. You know, it's just normal for humans to do that. But now that we're starting to move back towards going somewhere, petrol and diesel prices are rising dramatically. I've watched this over the last couple of weeks. Everywhere I've gone, petrol looks like it's expensive. I've gotten very irate voice notes from people on Instagram saying, I can't believe the price of petrol again is going up. And it just seems to be this relentless thing that's going on right now, that we're just driving up the price of petrol and we're making it look really, really expensive, so everyone pushes towards electricity. Not necessarily a bad thing if you're a fan of electricity, but there's a lot of people out there who can't afford to change their car and are stuck buying petrol and diesel. They have no choice than to go to the fuel station to buy it, and it's very expensive. It is starting to get out of hand now at this stage, seeing as we haven't moved for a year. And for the last 4 months, no insurance companies come at me to say, here's a rebate of 30-40 quid because you haven't driven your car beyond 5 kilometres from your house. Like, it's crazy to think we're not doing anything like this. Motor tax, you still have to pay the yearly motor tax, right? VRT, VAT, no changes in any of those things, despite not being able to go anywhere, do anything, or, you know, have any income right at that. Who's that from? It doesn't say who that's from. I got another donation by PayPal and I can't see who it's from. And I'll tell you in a second when it loads up. You take your time there, phone. I am on the edge of my own Wi-Fi here. This is wired. What I run through here is wired, but my phone has problems. Thomas Hyler, thank you very much, Thomas Hyler, for sending some money. You're very kind. Nigel Smith, my old Skoda Superb has a solar panel on a sunroof to run the aircon while you're away from the car. It usually fitted to Audi A8. That's correct, it was, yeah. It did actually do it too. It was enough. In hot conditions, it was enough to not drain the battery. I think that was the trick of it. Rather than actually running the whole air condition, it just charged up the battery a little bit. You need a lot of solar panels to charge, to do anything other than trickle charge batteries. You need a lot of surface area. My house, front of my house faces south. So essentially, is it south or north? I don't think about that though. No, my front of my house faces north. So I get the rising sun on the front of the house and setting sun on the back of the house. So when I got a solar panel guy around to have a look at the place, he wanted to put solar panels on both sides of the house, front and back, because it would only get some of the sun in the evening. And you're kind of looking at it going, well, this isn't going to work at all, because that's the whole roof now, and I'm only going to get 50% of the heat or the light from the sun in the evening and in the morning. So not all the solar panels are engaged at once. So solar panels are a bit of a problem in Ireland, depending on how you're fitting them and where they're going to be fitted, especially if you want to fit them just to a roof, you know. Mark Turner Smith is here as well. Good afternoon all from an unusually warm sunny day for February in the UK. It's gorgeous out there. It's lovely. It's lovely. Jonathan Kelly, hi Bob from the Isle of Man. Hope you're and family well. How's the Isle of Man? He's all locked down, he's out, or what he's doing, or is it clean of COVID? Like, you are a little tiny island, so it'd be nice, like, you're in an ideal location to just tell people to get off my land. Brian Cullen, Bob, let's be clear. Yesterday's protest wasn't Ireland speaking. It was Ireland's dangerous far-right and conspiracy loons inciting anarchy, driven to the likes of filthy Irish Freedom Party. Right. Could be, Brian. You might be right. You have a point, I suppose. But I think some of it was just general frustration as well. Some people were just generally... I'm sure there's some people among them who were driving that frustration on, but I think some of it just really came down to frustration from... You can see it online, you can see it in comments, you can see it on social media and stuff as people get more and more and more frustrated, and like from the DMs and things. I was talking to David Cuddy about that yesterday as well. Those kind of messages that tell you that, you know, you're the only thing keeping me going through lockdown, and you're kind of going, my God, what do you mean I'm the only thing? What are you doing, you know? Because not everyone's in the same situation. Some of that was expressed as frustration yesterday. Other people are just happy to get outside. I see some notable Instagrammer, let's say, not controversial people, but people who would be Instagram famous or would be famous on social media attended yesterday, and now the backlash is happening today of them being there, in that their sponsorship is disappearing and people are refusing to do merch for them and stuff. I didn't even know it was on, to be honest with you. Jim Shed, thank you very much, Jim Shed, for sending over some money by PayPal. You're very kind. Ian Noble, hi Bob, great show, thank you. Do you know when you'll get the GR Yaris back for full review? I have the GR Yaris review filmed, it's just not put out because the two were too close together and YouTube would never promote both videos at the same time. So Yaris GR review will be out next week. So it is filmed and done, yeah, sure. Dynamic Frame, in terms of hydrogen, I watched an interesting video about how many companies, including UK startup, trying to sort out our hydrogen fueled planes. It might not be cars, but maybe planes and ships. That's where we're going with hydrogen, yeah. The US kind of putting hydrogen in cars idea over in Los Angeles, they gave up recently. Just not going to happen. It's just too expensive. And it's just because electric batteries technology is now just so efficient. Look at Tesla launching their 800, 900 kilometer car. Audi has done the same thing. They've announced that a while ago. You know, they're all kind of pushing towards that long range thing just from batteries. And if that's the case, then there's no good case for hydrogen. The only good case for hydrogen is it just replaces like for like what you've already got. So you go to a petrol station or a hydrogen station, you put in a little filler, you fill it up and you drive off. That's the good case of it, in that there's no waiting to recharge a battery. But realistically, I've noticed, particularly since I've had an EV and owned an EV for a while, you instantly realise that there's no need to worry about charging up your car when you don't do many mileage anyway. It's just always got a charge. You jump in, it goes, it's a bit short of charge today, you've only 30 kilometres left, but you're only driving 4 kilometres and 5 kilometres up to town. You know, you don't need to worry about it. It'll be fine. Just plug it in when you're going home. So I think possibly airplanes, maybe, but I'd say we'd be looking more at trucks, buses, maybe sailing vessels or something that goes long range that doesn't need to worry about it. Darren McCann, well Bob, good vibes in the weather today. Yep, first day in a long time, felt normality. It's only around the corner. Bring on the summer. We need a bit of bring on the summer, don't we? We need a day out. We need some bikini action. We need some, budgie smugglers out on the beaches. We need some time. We need some crack. That's what people think. I think people really need. It's just a bit of crack, a bit of hope that we're going to get back to some sort of what we'll call normality. Being able to go out and talk to people without worrying about a mask or without worrying about, I don't know, just the constant pressure of behaving yourself, not doing something all the time. That's the thing, what's really bothering people most of the time. EV Ready sounds good. God, hope they can get a UK foothold too. It'll be a big company. EV Ready is really on a commercial scale as well as on a private scale. So you can get them to install your home charger if you want, but if you want to have a full size charging unit put into your house, EV Ready is also working with all the companies like Peugeot, and there's just so much to this company. And I wanted to sponsor today's Sunday service to kind of launch it in that way. So if you go to evready.ie, which is linked in the comments down below, you can have a look what they're all about. It really is a brilliant company. I spoke to Des the other day at length about what EV Ready does and how it works, and I'll be working with them in the future as well. There'll be more videos coming out about charging, what charges you can have, not necessarily guided directly towards EV Ready, just they do a range of home chargers, and I'm curious as to which one does what and why you would choose one over the other and what they're for and why EV box is different from, I don't know, LV or whatever. They've all got different ones. That's Des's thing. So I'll be talking to Des about that in the near future as well. So there'll be lots going on electric car wise on this channel. As always, we're not a sole electric car channel. I'm not not just electric cars. I test all kinds of cars. Like I have the Mazda CX-30 at the moment, which is a petrol powered car, mild hybrid. And it's probably the best car that Mazda's ever made, if I'm honest. The 100th anniversary version of it. It's just beautiful. And I'm looking forward to actually putting a review up of that. I'll film that in the morning when I bring it back. And then I'm off into the new Tiguan, which I'm looking forward to a drive of that as well. I'm looking forward to actually swapping cars out, was the most important part. Just, it's so much fun. CMS Karsten says, sorry he's late. Greetings from Bahrain. Bahrain. I always think, every time I see Bahrain, you put it up there, every time I go, I'd love to go up and see a bit of sand. Just sand. Even just a sand pit in a playground. I miss the beach. I miss it. Finbar Riley, thank you very much for the donation by Super Chats. That's really kind of you. Cross 13, there's relatively little problem running an EV entirely on solar power in Ireland for 9 months of the year. November to January has drastically lower generation. Home battery helps, but not strictly required. I suppose you could. In a day like today, you could if you were positioned right and you had enough sunlight, you could probably charge your car up entirely from solar panels. And I've been sent loads of press releases of things you can buy that solar panels directly into a charge point, little small solar panels just kind of like strapped to the wall. Ones go up to the roof level. It'd be good. It'd be nice if you get a solar panel that could track the sun, which would also be pretty good. So it's always kind of facing the sun in the right direction. That'd be neat. But these all take power and all take time. Still a little bit expensive and still probably not be able to charge. If you're charging, if you're not doing that during the day, it'd be fine. But at night time, you've no way of storing the power. There's where I'd have a problem. And I'd like to be able to charge at night time when everything else is turned off. Also, other things that Des is working on with EV Ready is they're working on an ability to be able to get you onto the right rate at all times, nighttime, daytime, even getting paid to charge your car, just to use. It's all coming. It's stuff he was talking about yesterday. We will be making an expansive video on how that works, so you will be able to charge your car and actually get paid to charge your car. So it'll be cost negative, which would be nice. Dynamic Frame started taking my vitamin D supplement recently on your recommendation, not just Vehicle Talk on the stream, ladies and gents. See, vitamin D, a little bit of vitamin D is good for you. Magnesium is good for, you don't get magnesium in your diet much, not as much as you think you do. So there's no harm taking a magnesium supplement as well, which also helps with pains and aches, will help you sleep every night as well, by the way. Vitamin B12 is something we used to get from dirty water, essentially. We got it from like dirty potatoes. We get it from mud on things in the water when you're eating stuff. So you don't really get it much anymore. And so vitamin B12 is another one I've added to the list that we do as well. It's just little things that top you up. Not saying they're going to be curing anything, but to make you feel a little bit better, which is the most important part, isn't it? A year's supply of vitamin D costs €10 on Amazon. Yeah, it's actually reasonably priced. Now, I would, in fairness, be very careful of what you're buying. You could be buying a bottle of water. That's the problem with that. You just don't know the vitamin D content of it. So I tend to go, there's a little health food store here in Portlaoise, and they're very helpful in there, and they gave me a little spray stuff, and it really works. They gave me a spray one for kids as well. It's a lower dosage version of it, because the kids don't quite need the same dose that an adult would. And so we have 2 doses of the thing here, and we do it every day, and it works very well. Now, I haven't bought it online, so I like to buy local. I'm a real local buyer. As much as I can, I'll always do that sort of stuff. Where was I there now? Lima Reardon, love that camper video. It's a lovely little thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's just a lovely place as well where they are. The little warehouse that they're in and all down in Tipperary. A tough looking town, like all Midlands, kind of middle of the country towns like that. Overlooked by Dublin, overlooked by jobs, and jobs just moved away from it. Same here, same in Portlaoise, and it's bigger towns, I think. Cross 13 says, I have several solar setups on the homes and businesses, far cheaper than people think. Planned right, payback is usually 7 to 10 years. See, get in touch. Cross 13, he knows what he's talking about, these sort of things. He does a few of them around the place. Des will be doing those as well from EV Ready. He'll be doing the solar panel stuff. It's a future one. He's focusing quite heavily now on just getting people hooked up to electricity and make sure it's all running properly first, and then worrying about the solar panel stuff later on, because it is very expensive. To do it on a larger scale is very expensive. I must check the newer prices of stuff as well, because it was a couple of years ago that I actually got solar panel priced here, and it just wasn't worth it for the amount of time, for what we're going to use it. And even the guy couldn't promise me we're going to be running the house from it. I wanted to be able to run my house from a electric wall box that would store the energy from the solar panels, trickle charge it for long enough, and then just flip over to it. And it would just flip to that, and it would start pulling electricity from the electric charge point, and then would top it up from solar panels throughout the day, and then at night time would be completely off grid, which was the greatest idea, but the price of it at the time just wasn't worth it. Me Hall is here. Hey Mick, grab the seat back here. Come on, you sit back there and relax, by, you're alright. Tony Amara, hi Bob, missed your visit to Fettert. Do you say Fettert or do you say Fettert? I'm not too sure if you pronounce a T. David didn't seem to think you pronounced the T when you were talking about it. Great place called Coffee and Square. Alice Passer. Oh, right. I seen that. It's on the T junction as I was coming around the corner. Yeah, I was there. I called into the petrol station as well, and met a girl there who recognised me, which is really cool when I get recognised. It's always neat. It's very unusual sometimes, but it's always neat, especially in a random place like Fettert. It was a kind of an unplanned video. I was supposed to get on Wednesday, but the rain was terrible, so we went on Friday instead. So the video came out on Friday evening. I was down there on Friday morning. It was all done the same day. Automotive L3 says MG is an estate EV, cheap to buy also. I haven't driven it. I don't like the look of it, just from the pictures. But I haven't driven it either, so I'm not too sure what way that would be, whether it's a good car or not. Most of the time, PHEVs that are estates or battery powered vehicles that are estates usually lose a ton of boot space. Ergo, look at the Ford Mondeo PHEV. You lose nearly all of the boot space. A big shelf in the boot, and the same for the PHEV version of the Toyota Prius. Also loses all the space. It's just weird when you see it that you have an estate, but you've actually got less space than a normal estate. So it just doesn't make any sense, you know. Paul O'Connor's here as well. John Check has come in. Colin Foley, hi Bob. Arising from the disturbances in Dublin yesterday, do you think that the rise of the far left right groups and organise themselves on social media will take hold here like they have in the USA? Yeah, I think people are doing a lot more on social media than everyone else thinks they're doing. I think some of it is boredom. I think some of it is because idle hands are make work for the devil. You know what I mean? It's an old saying now, but still holds true. We got a lot of unemployed people who have been unemployed for maybe a year. We have more people who are unemployed longer than that even. They go back even further, but now they've been joined by ranks of people who are being paid to stay at home. And when people get bored, they do something. And when people are told they can't do something, they get aggressive or they get really bored and just lose it. That's, I think, yesterday was a kind of an expression of that. But I have to, again, come back to the point that before the fireworks were shot, it was very peaceful looking. Nothing much seemed to be happening. Other than a bit of marching around. I understand a lot of them didn't have masks on. But from a violence perspective, from thinking about far right or far left, I don't think there was actually much going on at that until the fireworks started to happen. And that changed the whole situation, very rapidly deteriorated. Within seconds, it had turned into chaos. So I suppose we have to look at that. We have to observe that. We have to understand the mood of the people that are involved in that. It would have been people involved in that who weren't there from far left, far right, or even social media, just passing through Grafton Street. That would normally pass through Grafton Street. That's why you're seeing so many different angles on things. People working. Some of the videos we got shown yesterday made it out to social media while it was still kicking off. So social media really does have a massive effect on the ability of these people to organise. I've noticed it on TikTok as people change over to things like Telegram. Telegram is like WhatsApp, but like a super secret version of it. Then there's another one called Signal. There's a few different ones around the edges that people use up and down to organise stuff that are untraceable and untrackable by military or anyone else for that matter. They just can't be tracked in what's going on. So that's where the organisation is happening. And I don't think we have a rise of this far left and far right idea. We have some ideas that people believe because people on social media are talking to them more than our government are. Our government are telling them what to do, and the people on social media are agreeing with them. That's the difference between the two. It's very easy to sit there on social media and think we should do this, we should do that, when you've no responsibility to it. As a government continually kind of ignores people and just trots out every once in a while on 6 o'clock news and says, well, we have to do another lockdown for 6 months, then that just frustrates people, and there's no communication, and the communication is quite sporadic, and it's all a little bit weird, and leadership is required. We need a leader. We need someone to stand up and actually lead the country, not someone to stand up and try and lead us more into another left or right debate, whether it's there or not. I would suggest we probably have a little bit more right than left out there at the moment. Raymond Gray says, Bob has reported in Sunday Times that car production in Europe has slowed down due to a shortage of microprocessing chips due to COVID shutdowns. It's the same. I can't even buy a camera, lads, to be honest. I've been looking to buy a camera. The only cameras that are in stock right now are some of the high-end ones I've been looking at, which would be really good. Same for all these chips. It's the chips that's slowing down. It's even down to Canon and Sony, who make their own chips, but they also buy in things from other places, so they're all on slow down. Everything is grinding to a halt because on the chain of things, as we do this normal sort of just-in-time ordering things, the chain is broken down because some bits of it aren't running properly. And so you'll find that car companies are at the same thing. The camera I'm after now is a Sony camera. It's about $3,000. It ain't cheap. It's $2,500, maybe $3,000 to buy the thing. But if I'm going to, I do those kind of jump upgrades. I don't do a little bit. There's no point in buying a small little few cameras between the two. You like to kind of go from this one to that one. So I think I'm moving over to Sony now because Canon doesn't seem to have anything that really excites me at the moment. Austin Mahoney says, hi Bob, some weather today is beautiful. It's gorgeous blue sky out there. Hopefully you got some headphones in, you're just out lying in the sun just enjoying yourself and listening to this as well. It's always good. But you'll find that all the car companies are closing now. The Sunday Times is reporting the microprocessing chips, but it's also battery shortages. Electric cars are not being manufactured quick enough because we're not getting batteries fast enough. The whole chain of making batteries is the same thing. It's all very slow. It's all very, very quiet at the moment. Car sales, generally speaking, are down 25% or something across Europe, but that's only a tip of an iceberg. That's looking backwards. Looking forward, they're not predicting a big rise in the near future. Even with COVID payments and everything else sitting at home, I don't know if people are actually going to go out and buy more cars. I mean, look at the taxes on a car, lads. I mean, come on, dealers. I don't see dealers rattling their cage over VRT. And I don't know why. Do you know VRT is charged on safety products? Did you know that? The safety of your life and your family is put at risk because of VRT. Because to make a car cheaper, you take out the things you can't see, which is the safety equipment. So you take out the safety equipment, you make the car a little bit cheaper because you're taxed on safety. Even motorbikers, or I'm not a motorcyclist type person, but a motorbiker out there pays full luxury VAT on a helmet. So when they buy a helmet, they pay 22% or 21%, 23%, whatever the VAT rate is for helmets these days, but it's full luxury helmet price, as if the helmet is a luxury. You know, we need to attack these kind of things, because that's the thing that the reason businesses don't attack it is because businesses don't pay it. For VAT for a business, it's circular. You know, you don't pay VAT. You accumulate VAT. You have your VAT bill that comes in from the government, but you also bill your VAT out to other people, and it's a never-ending cycle of VAT and VRT. So they don't have to pay it, but the end user has to pay it. The person riding the bike has to pay VAT. The person driving the car has to pay VRT and VAT. You know, it's all happening. We need to start looking at that sort of thing, because that's what's taking money out of your pocket all the time. JP O'Rourke says, hi Bob, is it safe to buy a second-hand Mitsubishi FEV 171 with Mitsubishi leaving the market? What about after sales service? Well, after sales still with them, George, with the same group, always been there. MG Ireland is where Mitsubishi Ireland used to be. It's the same staff, nothing much has changed. So they will continue to support your warranty forever, just like they would have in the first place. Is it an 8-year warranty, Mitsubishi? I haven't tried out the 8-year warranty, but it's still there anyway. So yes, it's still safe to buy. You're still able to get parts and all that. It's no big deal. Mitsubishi's still going to be selling commercial vehicles in this country, as they always did. It's their passenger vehicles that they're going to pull out on. And so I don't know whether that's going to get worse into the future, but right now it's not a problem. They've already said, Frank Keane it is, they've already said that they will continue to support Mitsubishi into the future. Just because they're gone doesn't mean they won't look after you. William Byrne is here as well. Paul says, hi Bob, looking forward to this every week. It's the highlight of the week. Thanks Paul. And glad for a couple of hours we can all sit back in each other's company and relax. It's always good to chill out. Most people get very uptight during the week, so this should be your chill out zone, where we don't really talk about, we talk about the day, we discuss the day's things, but we don't necessarily get too deep into either one. David O'Connor, hi Bob, thinking of changing my 171 Mazda 3. It only has 37,000 kilometers on the clock from new, or keep or change. If you feel the need to change and you don't have great big debts, outgoings and that sort of stuff is going to stop you from changing, then you should change, because it's on your mind. You'll start to hate the car after a while if you don't change it. If you think you need to, then you go, I just hold on to it for financial reasons. Then it becomes like, why am I holding on to this car again? You know what I mean? So it's worth investigating as to which car you want to change to, though, because you might not want to stick with Mazda. As much as I like Mazda, maybe you want to break from the brand. Maybe you want to go with something else along the way. Although I do like Mazda's petrol engines at the moment. They're gorgeous. I had the CX-5 recently, which has just a straight petrol engine, and it was glorious. Lads, to just drive a straight petrol engine is a reminder of what we came from. It's a reminder of no turbo, like no torque. Just predictable, relentless petrol power. Okay, wrapped up in an off-road vehicle, or in a SUV, big size SUV, but I still think it was just an education of just a reminder of what it was like to drive something that has no big turbo going to cut in and kick your ass all the time. Aidan Madoc says, Hyundai Ioniq 5 is the EV car in front at the present. I think, however, it depends on how it drives. Old one was poor, range a little disappointing, and big recalls on Kona not helping financially. Kona, problem with the battery. Hyundai has decided to recall all Konas worldwide. Now there's $1 billion worth of a bill, because they're just going to swap out all the batteries. Because my biggest fear is an electric car that's plugged into your house going on fire. I just have this fear. I don't know why. It might not be rational. It's possible. Nothing is impossible. but it's not terribly rational. Like, I'll only plug in my car when I know I'm going to be home and I'm going to be there and I'm not in bed. I don't know why. Just don't feel like it. And so the thoughts of electric cars going on fire while being charged, which is what the Hyundai Kona has been pulled back in for, that is scary for anybody. So I'd imagine it's going to be a big bill, and now Hyundai is trying to blame the battery manufacturer. The battery manufacturer is saying we won't pay at all because this will break you. That kind of money will break you very quickly. It's not going to help. I agree, the Hyundai Ioniq, the current one that you can buy right now, is rubbish to drive. It is. It's a horrible. It just doesn't feel right. Just you're sitting too high in the seat, and it's as I said in my video, the worst electric car that you could buy right now. Not for range wise, it's fine. The range is okay. Hyundai Ioniq 1, the first one, was great. I don't know what they did between the two of them, made a mess of it. But either way, Hyundai no longer talk to me, so that's okay. I don't mind that. They'll come back around eventually, like everybody else. But yeah, the recalls for Hyundai is going to be a problem, especially when they're changing out the entire, well, all the cells of the battery. But this could turn out to be millions, billions in the end, particularly in countries where they could take court cases, like in America, where they could possibly take court cases against them if there's something wrong with the batteries in the Hyundais over there as well. Mike Schaefer says, how are EV cars going to affect the second-hand market in 10 to 15 years' time with batteries? More complicated tech to go wrong and costing more to fix. Are we just going to dispose like we do with a phone? This is a big question. The disposal part. I know we have recycling systems set up for batteries and all that sort of stuff. We're not doing that. But this idea that we can just keep making new things to replace the old things is something that I'm vehemently against. I really am. The idea that we have to continually make something new, that it's always better than the last thing, is definitely the wrong attitude to have. So, but at the same time, the second-hand market will be affected. If you have a petrol or diesel car, it will be affected by battery power, as less and less people want to have or own a second-hand a battery car or a second-hand petrol car. And as that starts to fall down, you know, the desirability in 10 years' time of a car that's just pure petrol sold today, 10 years from now, how much it's going to be worth. It'll still be worth something, but just won't have the same sort of value held onto it forever. You know, it's a big change over time. Electric cars are actually not more complicated than petrol diesel cars. They're simpler in operation because there's less moving parts, a lot less. There's still moving parts, just not as many. The tech-wise, most of the tech that's in electric cars is kind of a software tech. The fear I would have is battery power, that battery would be a problem, that they look for cheaper and cheaper alternatives for batteries into electric cars, like they did with engines. They did the same thing with internal combustion engines, making them and building them cheaper and cheaper over the years, but still charging the same for the car. So that's probably going to happen along the way. It's going to be difficult as long as we don't start making cars that are 5 years, 10 years old and then just need to be disposed of. That's big. That's going to be a massive problem. We have to have an end-to-end thing going on with the life, and not just looking forward to how fast we can recycle a thing. We should be looking forward to hopefully holding on to the car for as long as some of those older cars are on the road, like, you know, old Cosworths or something. They're still on the road 30, 40 years after they've been built. Cross says the structure of that Tesla Berlin factory is now 95% complete. They're already installing production lines of equipment. Start of production likely summer. Planning Model Y from there in 2022-23. That'll be good. I'd love more competition. I really do. This is really all I give out about, is the fact there wasn't enough competition. Last year, I got many irritated people on Facebook giving out to me because I was telling them to don't buy an electric car yet. There's not enough choice in the market. And that's essentially what it was. That was last year and the year before. Now we're starting to get a bit of choice. And from next year, the worldwide pandemic slowed down the choice. But from next year, we're going to have even more choice on the market. And I do predict a lot more battery-powered stuff coming in from China and India, Southeast Asia. They're going to start making battery-powered cars and exporting them to Europe for sure. You're going to find some more familiar brands. I still predict, and I have no guarantee for this at all, but have been predicting for the last 12 months that Saab will return within the next couple of years as a full battery-powered vehicle. And I really do think that kind of thing is going to happen more and more to us here. So the market will eventually top out and be flooded with electric cars you can buy. So buying right now means you'll have to trade something in. Unless you are ready and determined for it. You got a home charging unit from EV Ready or whoever it is you're out there getting it from. Then you're probably 10 steps ahead of the vast majority of Ireland, because you can't get your grant for a charger until you have the car outside your door and you take a picture in the parking space of it being installed. Then you get your grant back. It's all, of course, completely wrong. The grant and the grant for cars is going to the dealerships, not to the user, and the grant for the charge unit is going to the installer, not to the home user. And there's all kinds of problems across the entire system. It's just gone kind of wrong at the moment, but it'll come back eventually. Ioniq 5 looks good. God knows why they scale it down to be smaller. I don't know either. I don't know why they would. I don't know. Hyundai is a very strange company. Hyundai Ireland's a very strange company to deal with, but Hyundai Global is a strange company. I find Kia Global much easier to deal with, and I don't know why, since they're both exactly the same company. Like they work in a factory. If you look at one roof it says Kia, look at the other roof it says Hyundai. They're in the same place, but they seem to have such a different structure in their operations. It's kind of strange to see how they operate differently from one another. We're nearly an hour in already, lads. This is the fastest 2 hours of the whole week. Honest to God. This week has been quick, but like that last 50 minutes just went zing, gone. Anyway, still catching on. I'm answering questions from 226, so I'm not that far behind you. I'm alright. Now we're getting there. Jim Shed is here as well. Happy Sunday to everybody. 226 says that Isle of Man has a Greta COVID policy of not letting people in. What's Greta COVID? Anyway, some up from Scotland travelled 4.5 hours to the Isle of Man to jet ski to see his girlfriend and got jailed. Is that the right idea? He jet skied. How do you jet ski for 4.5 hours? That must have been the most uncomfortable jet ski. I've been up on jet skis. They're not very comfortable to go very far on. Like you really would. You're just wet and miserable the whole time. It must have been 4.5 hours of jet ski. He must have had some pain in his hole when he got there, and he got jailed. So God love him. He's stuck there. Well, you know, desperate times when you're in need of your woman's, you know, company. 4.5 hours of jet ski. I put up with that as well. Dave McCarthy, my insurance company wouldn't give me my additional discount from 7,000 miles to 1966 I drove in the last 12 months. EVs can sit, but ICE needs to be used and stay healthy. It does. And in actual fact, I got an email this morning from the lovely folks over at, where is it? DA this morning sent me out an email from Barry and from Connor Faulkner. He said over 1 in 5 Irish motorists report that reduced usage resulting from lockdown measures has led to their car failing to start on at least one occasion in the last 12 months. And so people are parking their car up for long periods of time. And it says that 14.9% of those surveyed that their car had failed to start on one occasion within the past year as a result of reduced usage. So what happens is essentially when you park your car, petrol or diesel, this can happen electric as well, but petrol and diesel mostly, when the car doesn't turn over, all of the oil drains away from the cylinders, drains back down to the sump. The oil thickens when it's just left standing still, and then it begins to thin out and get water in it. And then, of course, when you go to turn it over, the battery charge, the 12-volt battery under the bonnet, has drained out and just has enough power in it to push the cylinders round to make the car start. And then you might have just spark plugs that aren't wet anymore. You've got cylinders that aren't doing their thing. It's kind of old-fashioned priming is what you need to do, but you can't do that to modern engines. So loads of people will be stuck sitting at home. EVs can sit forever. Obviously, the wheelie things, the stuff underneath, brake disc, suspension, that sort of stuff, they can weather just like any other car. But generally speaking, most of these electric cars can sit around for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, and no change whatsoever to the amount of electricity in them. They don't really. I've had no vampire drain on my MG, not once. So far, I might not notice it so much, but I really don't see any vampire drain thing. So the worst that happened was we lost 20 kilometers of range one morning when we got in and turned on the heated seats and turned on the heater as high as we could, and just freezing. There's no preheat in that car, so I never bothered with it. Philip Gunn, thank you very much. That is a generous amount of money you give me there. But he was saying rainy South Spain. Did I hear you on Talk Radio Europe? You did. I do Talk Radio Europe once a month with Dave. It's a Spanish radio station, and I go on that radio station once a month, every month, to talk about cars. It's a real chatty car. 15-20 minutes is all we do, but it really is just a chin walk between two lads that like cars. That's pretty much it. A bit like Millennials 103, which I also do once a month, which reminds me I have to do Millennials 103 next week. I think I can't remember. I'm really disordered. If I didn't have Google Calendar, Google Calendar thing, I'd never turn up to anything. If it's not, you can ask my missus as well, same thing. Do I go to something if it's not in the calendar? No. When the phone rings to go, where are you? I go, did you put it in my calendar? No. Then I'm not going to be there. That's all that happens. So if you want me to book into something, you want me to go to something, make sure I have my phone in my hand and I open the calendar and I put it into the calendar, because otherwise it's not going to happen, because I just can never remember where to go to these places. Anyway, so yes, I was on and will be on again this month coming on Talk Radio Europe. You can get it online as well, Talk Radio Europe. Automotive 3 says, if you burn hydrogen in place of petrol, it produces massive amount of NOx. British Gas are converting boilers to this. The emissions are going to be terrible. That's crazy. That's crazy. Why would we swap one for the other? It's a bit like this thing that's going on right now, where I saw in the paper the other day, a farmer said that he can no longer buy peat from Bordemona to put as a bedding, as a flooring under his cows, which is what he uses for flooring, is peat, because he reckons it's very good for them. They can stand it soft and it gives way, and it's really nice. But he can't get it from Bordemona anymore. He now has to get it from Germany or somewhere. It's important because they've stopped selling peat. The idea that we can save the environment by not buying peat, by buying it from another country, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I don't know why would you do that? He doesn't use that much, but he can't get it anywhere. Anyway, I don't know. Cross says, H2, this is hydrogen planes. The Soviets tried it with the Tu-155, doesn't work. For the same reason it doesn't work for cars, poor volumetric energy density, economic and safety issues. Biofuel and EV planes work. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some point, because planes, like, I don't miss planes in the sky. Does anyone else miss planes in the sky? No. You know, when one plane passes over, it leaves a streak now, just one, and you go, oh, I've forgotten about planes. So I don't miss them at all. It's not that, obviously, I'm not talking about some sort of conspiracy theory with cloud seeding or something, but it's just I don't miss the blotting out in the morning. There's been mornings here in Portlaoise, because Portlaoise, are the centre of Ireland, essentially, is the place where everybody who's coming in from America or going out to America or even South America, they fly over this area. You can't hear them, but you can certainly see the crisscrossing of the streaks in the sky. And there are mornings where there's enough of them that they actually form a cloud. They cool the earth because they've created so much clouds in the sky, and it's kind of weird, but I don't miss them at all, particularly on a nice bright blue day like today. But EV planes, yeah, we still have the problem with weight at the moment, but we're coming to a point, I think, where the weight is not going to be so much of an argument anymore, the weight of them, because a fuel powered, or a jet fuel powered jet takes off much heavier than it's able to land, so it can have all of the people on board, all of the luggage on board, and full tanks, and still get into the air. But when it comes down the other end, the fuel is burned off, so the plane is actually lighter. Doesn't happen with a battery powered plane on a commercial sense, but I've seen some battery powered stuff over the last couple of months. Even a battery powered helicopter, quadcopter thing, which is like a mini taxi that we're going to use in Japan, I think that was, which is totally battery powered. Very interested to see them do that as well. That would be good. Single use little airplane thing. Can you imagine jumping into a flying taxi at Houston Station and getting out of the docks there, flying over down along the Liffey in a quadcopter? Pretty neat that. You wouldn't be driving it, obviously, it'd be just automated. Steve McCormick says, I think hydrogen was used as a distraction by oil and car makers for so long. I think it may not. I don't know if they knew, I don't know if they understood the problems behind it until they scale it up. Most of the problems for anything don't really become apparent until you make it big, until there's a lot of it, until there's a big demand on it. Then you go, hang on, this isn't going to work. And I think that's where the hydrogen argument starts to fall apart, really. Because once you scale it up beyond just kind of just a little home runabout thing or something, it's like a steam engine car. Like we had steam engine cars way back when, and like it takes hours for them to heat up. They're very efficient when they're running, but actually they're nowhere near as efficient as an internal combustion engine, but that's nowhere near as efficient as an electric engine. So you've got all of these little bits that work for an individual, but when you scale it up to a large scale operation, it tends not to work out so well. Oisin Walsh, Porsche is doing some interesting tests with fully synthetic fuel. Any future possibility? I think combustion engines are I think there's a place for them, possibly in among Porsche or Ferrari or McLaren or someone who's on that pointy end of it. But for just general workhorse use, there's nothing going to beat what electricity is doing right now, and the speed of adoption of electricity, which is really starting to ramp up now. People are really starting to ask questions. And this is from my own, just looking at my own channel. Every time I put up an electric car, no matter what the electric car is, it's sometimes up to 10 times the viewership of a petrol diesel car. And that's not because of the car. That's just because of the curiosity around electric. Because currently, there was a point where daughters and sons would ask dad or the uncle or the aunt or someone in a senior position what would be the best car to buy, what kind of car should I get, what do you think is the right one. That was the way to do it. But these days they can't, because those grandpas and dads, and they don't know anymore either. they don't have the answers either. So there's an element of viewership of electric. This is why a lot of electric YouTube channels have sparked up, just testing electric cars. I think that's really short-sighted and quite silly actually to do it, because I don't think I think it's too much of a narrow field at the moment to just focus right there. People want a good broad spectrum of stuff to watch, and if you're coming to watch a review of a car, you want to see other things as well. So I actually think it's quite a narrow field. And where do you say the cutoff of electric is? Is it a BEV? Is that all you're going to test, or is there going to be PHEVs, which have nothing to do with battery cars? They've only got battery power in them slight bit. So PHEVs and hybrids, are they out? Are mild hybrids out, or any of that? So once you get into that sort of argument, I think BEV is probably, once we get to 50% of the market, I think the answers will start to screw up. Then you'll find the differences then fairly rapidly. But right now it's still 4, 5, 6% of the market. But the noise that's been made out there right now by electric cars is just that's like a pun, but it's just incredible out there right now. Every time an electric car comes out, everyone goes, "What, did you see the Neo? Did you see the thing? Did you see this?" There's always a name that comes out somewhere, There's a lot of angst around it as well, as to whether people should or shouldn't change over to electricity. And I think we're starting to get the argument starting to win through now. Nudge Nudge Wink says there are exploring the use of hydrogen in gas network feeding boilers and appliances, instead of making tens of millions of homeowners forking out for new heating systems. That would be nice. I know a heat pump is probably the most efficient thing you can use for a house, but again, the cost of changeover, when you think of the rate of mortgage payments and all the other payments that are going out, then you have to put in this cost of changeover to a different heating system, which again possibly isn't going to be something that we have going into the future. We have something else that'll come along and be different again. So if we could replace using fossil fuels, that's good. If we could replace using combustion in every way, that's even better. It's the combustion of things that actually causes the CO2, the NOx, and all these other offset gases that come from burning things. So if you stop combustion, you've got a win straight away. That is hour one done. Congratulations, you've made it this far. Hour one, we're in. It is now 15:01. Get yourself a drink for a start. But look, we have to give a mention to our main sponsor today, which is EV Ready, which is why that is in this corner of the screen, wherever that is now. It's very hard to see that actually. This EV Ready is right across here. It's very hard to get your hand organised in that direction. But EV Ready is the main sponsor of this show. Today, you can sponsor the show if you want to as well, of course. But EV Ready is Des Mulhare, who is one of our friends of the show, has been our friends for a long time of this show. Please check out evready.ie and have a look what's going on there. They do everything from commercials right down to the smallest installation and the weirdest installation of electric car bits and pieces, including the most important part of electric car, which is charging it at home. And I do recommend, if you have questions about charging your car or doing something at home, get in touch with EV Ready first. Get in touch with Des and ask him questions. He's open the phone. His phone number is on the website if you want to get in touch with him. By the way, Des is also hiring qualified electricians at the moment, so if you're a qualified electrician looking for a change of scene, get in touch with him. I seen it on LinkedIn there today. Get in touch with him and get a job for yourself as well while you're at it. But installing home chargers is the most important thing you're ever going to do. Do not buy an electric car unless you have a home charger. Don't, unless you're planning to put it in, or you're getting it in, or you've got it in. Don't buy an electric car. You're wasting your time and you're wasting your money, because you just end up charging on the street the whole time, which is going to screw you on the price of electricity. They're only for once in a while charge ups. CMS 1104 asks Carson. You should change the name just to Carson, honestly. Bob, I love to be back visiting Ireland to see some green. You should, yeah. It's all green at the moment. Everything is just green now. It's all come lush now. Adrian Nelson, hi Bob, all greetings from Melton Mowbray, where they make the pork pies. I always think of pork pies when I see that now. I don't know how hydrogen works. Does it power an electric motor? You can either burn hydrogen directly. I won't say burn hydrogen, but you can actually combust hydrogen directly into the engine, which is one way, or the other way is that you burn it in another way and it charges the batteries running the engine. That's the only two ways to do it. The one I'm thinking of most would be the Honda Clarity, with the most, that's because it's made famous by Top Gear. But Toyota's been playing with them for a while as well. Now Toyota is bringing out electric cars along with Lexus. And so even I think their dream of hydrogen is starting to fade a little bit as well, as they realise it's not very efficient. It's also very expensive. Just to make hydrogen is very expensive. Transporting it, storing it, putting it, everything has to be put into place for hydrogen to work anyway. You're starting from zero. You're starting from the same as having no petrol stations. It's the same thing. You're at nothing. There's quite a lot of you here today, I have to say. It's quite a busy day. Very busy day. Click the like button if you wouldn't mind. It'd be really good. Just sends out a signal to YouTube. It's not like telling your friends you're watching something. It just tells YouTube that something's happening. So like button is always useful. Thank you very much for doing that. And anyone who wants to, of course, hit the subscribe button is always useful as well. If you can, it'd be really good. John Smith says, I own a Mark II MG6 and the MG cannot supply parts for a 5-year-old car. Yeah, because MG doesn't really exist as MG. It's not MG of old. I don't know what way they're after working that out. When they took on the MG brand, whether they actually bought into supporting older MGs, because the company's been sold a couple of times along the way. But I'd like to see what they're going to do with the rest of, because that's the hard part. Same for Tesla, same for anything that's a new car company coming on the market. Will suddenly find themselves in 5 years' time having to support 5-year-old cars. That's their problem. That's what Volkswagen still has to do. They have to support cars back into the 60s. Toyota's at the same thing. Nissan's at the same thing. They're supporting cars that were made years and years and years and years ago, and that's where the new car companies have a massive advantage in that they can just start producing cars now and don't support anything because there's nothing going to break down. Well, very little going to break down at the beginning of something, you know. Jim Shed said, today I bring in my Project Mini Cooper S in for NCT retest. The last time I was told to check my odometer as it only completed 210 miles since last test. It's a Project Sunday car, I was told him. Yeah, well, my Leon does about 6,000 kilometers a year as a primary car. So, you know, if you don't try, I'm sure NCT, like mine's due an NCT again, which I have to wash it and clean it and book it in and all that sort of stuff because it's still sitting there, even though I'm driving the MG. But I must get at it. I should get at it because it's not fair. You know, it's being ignored. My car I've had since brand new is now suddenly ignored. Bet you it'll start first time all the same. Never give any trouble. Ed McLaughlin says Mercedes EQS looks to be the latest EV up and coming, far for 2021. Prices starting at £80,000. Hydrogen cars may have been better for environment, but still cost the same as diesel to fill your tank. Yeah, actually probably more because you don't get the same combustion of it. The hydrogen combustion rate would be very similar to a petrol. Like think of rather than diesel, think of petrol. The combustion rate. So you know that kind of 7 litres per 100 kilometers. You'd be kind of in around there with hydrogen as well. So it's not terribly efficient anyway. The only good thing, like everyone says, only emits water. Yeah, well, electricity doesn't emit anything. You know, there's no tailpipe at all in electric. So, but it would be very expensive. Mercedes, the EQ range of Mercedes is actually quite interesting. What Mercedes are doing, and it's a whole different division within Mercedes as well. They're really doing something really good, and I like that. The more that they do, the more the pressure they put on Audi and BMW to compete with them, and you know that kind of competition breeds in better innovation every single time. That's where I like it to be. I like more of that sort of stuff. Mick says, enjoy this week's podcast with Leo. That's if you haven't downloaded yet, you should, by the way. The story of his dad trying to fit as many people into possible car just shows how much times have changed. I do a podcast now which has been out for the last couple of weeks. You'll find it on Spotify with that same logo on it, the BF logo on it as well. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Tunes, it's everywhere. It's been syndicated out, so it's flying along. It's lovely. The latest version of it is Leo Nolte, who's on. You might know Leo Nolte if you've ever been to Mondello or you've ever he's been on the channel a couple of times. But I interviewed his dad before his dad passed away a couple of years ago at a thing called, what was that called? Vikings something or other. Norse Raid, that was it, Norse Raid. We did this kind of car drive across Wicklow, and his dad was at it as well. We interviewed his dad there at it, and Leo came on to the podcast to talk to me about it and talk to me about everything. He was on for about an hour. We had a great old chat about all kinds of stuff. We even chatted about, there's so many things we touched on while we were there. We talked about what would be called intermittent wipers these days, but like options on a car years ago that would have been wipers that would pause when they get to the bottom and then come back up, now called intermittent wipers. Those kind of wipers were an optional extra once upon a time in cars. You either had wipers on or off. They were either wiping dun, 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 or turned off. That was it. That was the only two positions. That was the old one. And I still remember being in a Land Rover with as a child. I went to work with my father and he sent me off with people called Fenton from Athy. And we went out to the farm in a Mark 1 Land Rover Defender, and it had a motor on either side of the front window that you could turn on, and it would turn on the wipers. Just on the top of the window, just a little click, a little switch, you turn it on. It was cool, really cool. I still remember that from that point. It's so long ago. It's funny how cars take that much of effect on you. Eric Rocher says, keep hitting the like button. Thanks, Eric. John Smith, MG UK are not catering for MG6 parts, clutches, etc. That's going to come to blows eventually, because obviously MG is quite a popular brand in the UK. More popular than here. We're only seeing MG stuff coming out now, but they've been out a while in the UK. Dynamic Frame says, gas central heating will soon be banned on UK new build homes, so focusing now on hydrogen. Making hydrogen fuel is not so very eco-friendly compared to air ground pumps, and I hear they're not that good. Heat pumps would be the way forward, even in a domestic sense. You see it in electric cars now. My MG doesn't have a heat pump, but you see heat pumps in most of the thing, which is, you also see, like if you ever watched that Grand Designs, which I find very interesting, the heat exchanger system, which it kind of pulls in, I don't know how it works. It's like black magic. It pulls in air from the outside, somehow heats it and passes it through the house as warm air. And the constant supply of warm air in the house is actually totally free. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that, but that's the impression I got. I'm not a domestic home user of these kind of systems, but it's interesting to see what tech is out there right now. It's all probably very expensive to be settled down and stuff, and it starts to get invested. But I just don't see how we're supposed to replace combustion with combustion if we want to get the lower CO2 and NOx down, everything else down with it. We have to stop combusting things. That's really what's causing the problems. Not cars particularly, or trucks, or not one particular thing. It's just general combustion. Everything is being combusted at some point. We should be looking at ways to not combust things, which would be really good. Clover videos here as well. Hi Bob, looking at a 3-year-old Honda SUV which tends to hold its value quite well. Can you recommend another SUV which is good? Depends what you want it for, Darren, really. Honda SUVs, which I'm thinking you're talking about the Honda CX, no, I remember the name of it now. I think I know the one you're talking about though. Are actually very good, very dependable cars. I don't get on necessarily with the infotainment system on them. I think it's quite clunky on all Hondas. It's been clunky for years. It does feel quite old fashioned when you're using it. But other than that, Hondas are really good to drive. They're really good to own. They don't give any trouble. They're built very, very well. You tend to get a lot of equipment in them. If you're looking around that kind of level, you should be looking at something like some of the Volvo V60s and stuff. Those kind of ones are out there too. Anything that competes directly is good, but if you want dependability, that's what you're looking at. I think Hondas will be affordable and dependable at the same time, and they tend to hold their value very well, because people desire Hondas when they move them on. Have a look at some of the Skoda stuff there as well, but Skoda's only just starting doing SUVs. Whether you find a 3-year-old one, what in the price range you're looking for, they're very popular. Mick Mulcahy is here as well. Good to have you by. Niall Power, is rust on a car spell the end for it? No, not at all. Not in the least, no. Depends what kind of rust. You've got several kinds of rust. So you got surface rust, which that's rust where it's pierced through the paintwork, and it's after getting its way under the paintwork, it's now touching the metal, so it gets rusty. That can be just sanded off. Literally, you just sand down the whole area, get rid of all the paint flecks and chips, sand it down to it's absolutely flat, a bit of filler over the top of that to flatten it all out again, sand it again, bit of primer, bit of colour, back to normal. Probably never see the rust again. If it's really rusty, if you're looking underneath the wing and behind paintwork, so underneath the car, so when you're starting to see rust all along bits and pieces back there, that can be a bit of a problem. Some of that rust can be cut out and new pieces welded in, which is not necessarily good. You can't do that in the chassis, but you can do it with some of the other bits of the car. But mostly rust can usually be cured if you just deal with it, and I mean deal with it very quickly, Niall. Like, don't mess around waiting for 6 months to try and fix it thinking it'll be dry enough. Once it starts as ingress, it can be quite invasive and start getting into all kinds of parts of the car. So go to a paint shop, go to a mechanic and have a chat to them, someone who's experienced with paints. There's plenty of paint shops still in existence. They'll give you a quote instantaneously as how much it's going to be worth to you. And how much it's going to cost to fix it, but it's certainly not the end of it, no. Jim Shed says BMW 1 Series, M Sport, GR Yaris, Golf GTI, AMG A35S, which would you choose? Out of those, I would pick a Golf GTI, Jim. The reason I say that is because you could drive a GTI every single day and not even know you're in a GTI until you go into sport mode and floors, and then you know you're in a GTI again. Whereas all of the rest of them have all got either very sharp suspension or the M Sport BMW M Series I'm thinking about there. The GR Yaris is so small. It's a tiny little thing. You'd need to be single. Putting kids in the back is just a hassle. The AMG A35 is okay. I'm not sure of the look of it. For me, it'd be a Golf GTI every time. I'm just a GTI nut though. Dynamic Frame says, used Panasonic GH4 back in the day when I was doing more filming, migrated to editing now. And they were superb cameras, so small, and 4K picture quality was amazing. Yeah, I know, they're brilliant. I'd have to learn it all again, obviously, coming from Canon to Panasonic. But a lot of people recommended GH4 to me, and there's GH5 now as well. But even getting a hold of any cameras at the moment is really hard. What I'm looking at right now is there's a couple of Sony, what would be called handy cams, but they're actually prosumer, pro cameras, but they're in a small, like that kind of a, these kind of old-fashioned cameras, like that kind of yoke. Because I don't necessarily change lenses all that much, and I don't take photographs of those big cameras. I take photographs with my phone now these days, so I don't really bother with the big cameras for photography, and I don't bring them with me everywhere, so I just bring it on film shoots. And so I could easily change over to the kind of camcorder look to the thing, which would give me audio in, audio levels and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but it seems to be where things are for me are starting to go. I think a lot of those Sony cameras and Panasonic cameras are over. There's too much in them for what I need them for. There's too much in them nearly. Instaman, but the lineup is sick, man. Robert surely getting a ticket to Jan. I don't know what the hell. Are you speaking English? Did you just pick some words out of a hat and throw them onto a page? Nudge Wink says gas is due to be banned as heating source in 2023 in new homes in the UK. We should be receiving information about the replacement as soon as someone who works in new builds housing. We haven't as yet. Nat gas meant to go away in the next 2 years, and nobody knows what they're moving it to. This seems to be the way of most governments, to be honest with you. They seem to make these ideas. Let's just ban the sales of these things from this year. And then everybody goes, right, what are we doing instead? Oh, I don't know what that's going to be. We just ban them anyway. See what happens. Someone will know what to do by the time we get there. Cal Brown says, what's your thoughts on Peugeot Traveller? I can't afford a VW. I like those buses. I like those kind of buses. Look at the Peugeot Rifter as well if you're not into that kind of thing. But the Traveller is a big, like, 9-seater, 8-seater, 9-seater thing. I've both driven it and been driven in it. I drove over to, we went to the airport one time with Peugeot and they brought us in the Traveller from Peugeot headquarters to the airport and back again in the car. It was really lovely. They're nice, affordable vehicles. I don't know why someone would buy a 7-seater and not, because they're nearly the same price as those buses. They wouldn't be far off between buying like a Ford Galaxy and a Peugeot Traveller. The step up was not going to be huge. John Bit 1 says, hi Bob, hi, trust, well, I am, no bother. That's a way I put it. A practical question. How do you safely top up oil when electronic dipstick indicates 1/3 full only? How do you avoid it overfilling Audi A6 TDI? They don't want you to. That's the thing, you see. They don't like the dipstick. They don't like you opening that bonnet. And that is the biggest problem for me that I have today. This idea that instead of saying you're not allowed to repair it, they just take away your ability to be able to do things for yourself. So they would rather you called in somewhere and did that properly. I've never used an electronic dipstick, but I've heard horror stories of people trying to top stuff up and not knowing how much to put in the first place. That's the biggest issue we'd have with anybody. Maybe someone in the comments will be able to help us with that one. Have you done an electronic dipstick of tipping up of oil or topping up of oil? Thomas Heiler, here in New Orleans, the local electric company only offers $250 rebate to install a 220 volt line for charging EVs. No difference in rates for charging at off-peak times. We do have night rate meters here. There is an extra charge for night rate meters, so if you're not going to use it, you're probably not going to make any money from it. You're not going to save much money from it unless you're going to charge off that night rate all the time, because there's a flat rate that goes with night rate. Your bill goes up straight away even if you don't use it. And we do have off-peak. We do have 600, I think it's €600 that gets paid out for if you're putting in a home charging unit. You pay half essentially. Steve McCormick says fires on a petrol car are even worse. The EV tend to be related to BMS issues. I know, but a petrol car doesn't spontaneously combust outside your house. Just while you're charging an electric car, you're plugging it into the house. The heat generator can cause them to go on fire, and that's where my fear comes from. Is that I'm not saying it's a rational fear or it can happen all the time. Petrol and diesel cars go on fire too, but they usually go on fire when there's been a crash or something has happened or they've been pierced or something, and that would cause a fire. whereas a fire in an electric car tends to happen when they're being charged, so it just goes on fire. Not spontaneously, just because there's too much heat. A lot of that heat, of course, is generated from driving really hard, then getting to a charge point and plugging it in, and that generates more heat in the way it goes. Tony, yes, Bob, are there any electric cars enjoyable to drive other than Tesla? You mean spirited drive? They'll all spirit drive, so they'll all drive nice and fast, and they feel like they have a lot of torque. Feels like there's a permanent turbo installed in all of them, so all of them are a bit fun to drive. Most of them are understeery. What I mean by that is they're not built to go like the way you think you're going to go, so you get different torque levels and things in them. The one I enjoyed driving most was the Peugeot E208, which I think is a lovely thing to drive. The low down feeling, centre of gravity in them feels good in it, but they still understeer a fair bit. The newest ones are the best ones. Model 3 is nice to drive, although it does have this habit, the 4-wheel drive version of it does have this habit of kind of torque vectoring in a weird way, so sending power forward and back, just a weird way, where you don't expect. So not really is my answer to that. There isn't one out there that's any way that I would choose to handle over time. I'll be testing Porsche Taycan in the near future, which would be another one to add to the list, but we'll see what that's like. But they're the only ones I can think of right now that are even remotely nice to drive. Hudson Jr. says, I've purchased a Seat Ateca 1.4 150 horsepower excellence. Have you managed to test this, Bob? What's your thoughts on the car? I have been in Ateca. It's lovely. I was reviewing the channel. Lovely little car. Good value for money, Seat, at the moment. And they have more stuff on the way too. So Seat are still beavering away in the background doing their thing down in Barcelona as much as they can. So there is good cars out there. They've got Ateca is better value than its equivalent, whatever the equivalent of that would be in Volkswagen and Skoda, because they all made the same car basically. There's Cross 13. He says the Porsche Taycan drives very well. I haven't driven it. Still haven't driven it. Every time I book it in, we end up in lockdown. Brian O'Donnell says, hi Bob and Flavin Nights. Hope all is good and safe. A bit late coming to DIY garden. My wife's doing the same thing all day. DIY out front, digging holes. Every time I turn around I have a different garden. That's no joke. Because my wife she wasn't a gardener, but since lockdown's begun, Monty Don is on the bloody television every 5 minutes. I even bought her a Monty Don book for Christmas. So it's just become like gardener's world in this place all the time. Hi Bob, thanks for your videos. Any chance you could make one about the PH plug-in hybrid Tiguan? I have a Tiguan booked in on Monday. I don't know what one it is. I don't know what kind of Tiguan it is. I'm assuming it's a plug-in hybrid or a hybrid version, because it seems to be everything that's coming out these days is not diesel. So I'll check with that. That's tomorrow. I don't know what the car is though. Aidan McLaughlin says, hope Saab comes back. There was a last 95 was gorgeous looking. Yes, the 95 is, the last one was lovely. The suspension was not finished in the back of it, but it was lovely. Really good car. I'd love to see more car companies hit us with the information that they need to hit us with. And some of them coming back as well. Oh, and a lot of tweets. Oh, there's loads of people out to tweet me. Alright, it's the podcast. The podcast is going out very well now at the moment. People are really starting to cop onto it. It's nice, just a chin wag of a podcast. Linked in the bio down below if you want to see the power to hear the podcast. There's actually 3 up. We did Max Hart was on. He's a race driver, UK, but he's an Irish race driver, but he's race driving in the UK. We've had a good. I've recorded a lot. There's more to come out. So a new one out next Friday. A new one out every Friday for a few weeks. There's loads of people that are emailing to be on the podcast, so that's happening too. We'll see what comes out of that one. Nudge, did I miss one there? I must have missed one, did I? I did miss one. Clover Video. Hi Bob, and thinking of investing in a classic Alfa Romeo 156, good car. 159 is nicer. Where's a good place to buy this type of car, or auction or private seller? Wherever you can get them. They're very hard to come by. All Alfa Romeos are hard to come by. It's history, it's everything you need to know is going to be when you see the car first. So look at as many of them as you possibly can before you go choosing one. Don't choose the first one you see. Go find them, look at them, examine them, listen to owners clubs, because when an Alfa Romeo goes wrong, and it probably will in some way or another, you're going to end up forking out tons of money for it. You want to make sure that you're buying something that you want to kill yourself trying to spend money on all the time. Nudge, wink. Electric cars in the UK need separate earth rod as the car is charging outside. It's in case of a break in the earth from the house. Where that happens, you risk the shock of car's body. Oh, didn't know that. We are earthed anyway. It's a fairly recent house, this house. Steve McCormick, Saab returning to an EV would be my dream. What about Sonos, Scion coming to production? They've all got something. So most electric companies in general will actually fire out a ton of ideas that they're going to go, we're going to do this, we're going to do, here's our beautiful car, look at our beautiful prototype, and then they try and get funding from that. So a lot of the car companies you're hearing about, a lot of the names you're hearing about, won't really go into production with that car. You'll see some of them will, some of them won't, some of them make them in very small batches, which I think is the way people are going to go anyway. Like the ultimate way would be to kind of take just say Tesla chassis and power unit and all the bits underneath, and then put a different shell on it. The one you like the look of, you put a shell over the top. That'd be the ultimate way, because then it'd be the cheapest possible car you could have. Alright, Bob, just wondering if you charge your night saver meter, would you save much? Happy Sunday, cheers. You would save a fair whack if you managed to charge everything at night time, not just your electric car, and how much your dishwasher, washing machine, everything you do in the house that you would normally just run at will during the day or night. If you decided you'd run all of that off night meter, you can save money. But the standing charge takes the good out of it, if I'm honest. If you're just going to charge an electric car over it, unless you do a lot of mileage and you charge all the time at night time, you're not going to save a whole lot. So you need to do a lot of mileage, a lot of charge. If you're charging on a regular basis, like every couple of days or every 3 days in your electric car, your high mileage night rate meter, and charge at night time, you will save money, yeah. William Ballingham is here again. Thanks again for your support. No problem at all. Jason says, I'm currently in a Seat Arona 1 litre auto. Wow. I think I'm getting an MG ZS EV. Heard good and bad things, worth going over to EV. Depends on your mileage, Jason. If your mileage is high, you're going to save money on that Arona, because it's a 1 litre petrol. It's going to be murdering. If you're not a high mileage person, then you know, you might not save as much money as you think. Now the MG ZS EV brand new, you could buy an entry level one for about 31 grand. Buy them second hand for about 25 grand. So what would you spend that on? Anything? Like, they're not expensive, I don't think, as electric cars go, and it's doing everything we needed to do, so it works for us. Whether we're saving money or not, I don't know. My wife would just basically put €20 a month into the Leon, so it really didn't cost all that much money. Let's just say on an extraordinary month, €30 a month into the Leon, and it was all short runs. But where we'll probably save is service costs. I'd say servicing will be the thing where we save to make up the difference between the two. I'd say we'll get some amount of it. Desmond Hare reminds me, Des is always here. He's here one way or the other. You need to be driving 15,000 kilometers a year to justify night rate. Day rate goes up by 2 cents, and standing charger goes up by 20 to €30 a month. Above 20,000 driving is well worth it. So if you're doing over 20,000 kilometers a year, you will definitely save money on putting in a night rate meter. If you're under 15,000 kilometers a year, it'll be risky as to whether you're going to save any money or not on it. Just from driving wise, that's just charging your car at home. But if you're driving very low mileage, like myself and my wife, on a regular basis, 6,000 to 10,000 kilometers a year, you're probably not going to save a whole lot, to be honest with you. Dynamic frame plumbers tell me the engineers are looking at changing the mix, going from boilers, so produce less emissions and only require a small alteration of boiler. Hit the like button, please. Yeah. We'll get rid of that. That's grand, yeah. Thank you. Kira Hennessy, love teardrop camper video, Bob. Think I'll rent one this summer. More of that, please. Okay, Kira, we'll do. Yeah, it doesn't share very well. Funny enough, like because I think it's all down to hashtags and stuff. The way YouTube works, whether people are searching for stuff or not. But it's a beautiful little thing. Those teardrop campers just took my breath away, literally sitting in them. Now look, you'd have to compromise your whole life with them, but you have to put a tent anyway, don't you? You know, if you decide to go with a tent down to some campsite, it's the same as going, but that has walls. It's the only difference, you know. And you're indoors, you're out of the wind, you're out of the breeze, you're out of the rain, and until you're in a tent up on top of it, if you want to use that. The bigger one, the big teardrop one, the 850 kg one, when you put a tent on the roof of that, you can have up to 500 kgs in the tent. The smaller one, the rental one, carries 160, I think, is the max. So it's one adult with a child, I think, or two light people, two skinny people on the roof for the smaller one. They are building new ones. There's guys that I was talking about it recently. They're designing a brand new Irish one, which is coming later on this year. It's going to be made in Northern Ireland. Dynamic frames only, that's someone else's question. Jurgen O'Reilly says, live in Dublin, still a heap near me. I don't know what that is. No judgment, dynamic frame isn't going to happen. Austin Mahoney, hydrogen is a huge area of development, great for investment at the minute. I don't think so. I wouldn't invest in hydrogen right now, the way it's looking right now this minute. I think to be an element of, if you were investing in it, you'd be investing in it for a commercial sense. But for retail sales, car sales, I don't see any hydrogen cars coming out in the next 5 years for personal use. I really don't. I think there's so much of a difference between hydrogen and electric right now. And there's so many people going straight at electric, like new investors into the market going straight into that. They're just dodging the whole hydrogen thing. So I'm not sure it's even going to be worth your while thinking about it. But I'm not an investor, so I don't know. The Singing Shade, 239 watching, only 79 likes. Something's wrong there. Could be. Might not be measuring the likes. Let me just have a look at that. I have 131 likes at the moment, so maybe it's have to pop up along the way. You'd be surprised. People don't often see likes when you watch on TV. If you watch this on TV, as a lot of people do watch on TV, or they just listen to it as an audio thing in their mind, they don't see a like button. So we put a lot of YouTube put a lot of emphasis on the like button, but actually they take it away from you most of the time. No judgment going. Emissions from airline industry is less than all the world's data centers. We'll always find that argument. There's always that argument somewhere. That happens a lot, a hell of a lot. People will always say this is bad, but this is worse. Whereas actually we should be lowering down the emissions of everything. It's everything that's combustible or used or generates heat, creates CO2. We need to lower it all, not particularly one segment over the other, one sector over the other. Listen, I want to give another shout out to Des Mulhare and his EV Ready team that's out there as well. You can find it out on evready.ie. There is the website address popping up in your screen right now, if you're watching in visual sense, that is, of course. evready.ie. He will look after everything you needed to do at all times when it comes to installing your home chargers, or indeed your industrial chargers if you want to. Des has done all of that work. Fully qualified electrician, is hiring an electrician at the moment as well if you need him. But get in touch with them if you've got questions about electricity, or whether something is going to save you money or cost you money or any of that stuff. Des has always been my go-to every time, and he's seen there a second ago. He's always listening, paying attention, and coming up with the answers and the questions and stuff along the way. He's done the work. He knows what he's talking about. So get in touch with evready.ie if you've got any questions about home chargers, commercial chargers, industrial chargers, business chargers. I'd like to see, my wish is, of course, with electric cars, it has been that all along, is that we should see chargers essentially everywhere. You know, you go to IKEA and you see 40 chargers in IKEA car park, not one in the back end of the car park on a green square. You see 40 of the things, they're all over the place. Or 50. You go to Portlaoise Plaza, instead of seeing 2 fast chargers, you see 2 fast chargers and 10 or 15 or even 20 little 22 kilowatt chargers. They're just everywhere. The more common they are, the easier the argument becomes. So that's what you need to be talking about. That's where you need to be looking at moving that whole argument forward. Wayne Kerr says, wait till more of the population goes electric, then electric companies will rocket up in prices. See, they can't either. They can and they can't. I think they'll start to figure out ways of charging you as an individual for what you use in electricity. But there's no point in charging. Like, I have neighbours who don't have a car at all. So there's no point in charging them more for electricity just because I drive an electric car. That wouldn't make any sense. I don't think people will put up with that. I think there'd be murder over that. So it just wouldn't be worth it. But taxes are another argument entirely. Fuel taxes, excise duty, all that sort of stuff that we already pay right now on petrol and diesel. That's where the government are going to lose. That's where the Department of Revenue is going to lose out. That's where that's going to happen. There will be questions asked about that at some point. They'll figure something out. Now, I know last year Eamon Ryan mentioned sort of in passing the charge per kilometre thing, the idea of just using your car and you pay more if you're using more kilometres. So I don't know what that means, whether that's going to be some sort of tax on having a car in the first place. I'm not sure. I don't know. Knight Smith says, most of the alternative fuel ideas have been brought up by oil companies and Shell. Remember the fuel made from citric acid and orange shell. Yeah, everything gets Shell. They do it. There's always some sort of idea that's floated. Someone gets funding. Funding is usually the key of most of these things. Somebody gets funded somewhere, and then all of a sudden the funding goes, well, that's great, we got our money now, let's stop talking about it. Let's actually invent the thing we're going to invent a few minutes ago. Or they produce something to a point and they realise it's just not worth it. Cosmo187 says, how come car sharing doesn't work in Ireland? Back in the old country we had an app. Everywhere you want to go with someone is surely going the same way for a small fee. Drivers and passengers rate a review. Because we're ignorant. Simple as that. We don't want people in our car we don't know. That's what it comes down to. We're afraid, and we've been programmed to be afraid. When I was a young lad, working in Newbridge, living in Kildare, I would hitch to work every single day. That was absolutely normal. Could not afford a car to have it on the road. Insurance was incredibly expensive. Had to get a job. Before I could get enough money from the job to tax insure the car to get it on the road, you have to get to work. So I got to work by hitching every single day and never had a problem, never had an issue, never ran into any trouble. But hitchhiking in Ireland or getting a lift with someone in Ireland is always seen as kind of, because we're so afraid to look poor. We're so afraid to look like we have nothing, or we haven't got the money, or we can't afford it. We're afraid of that aspect of us. And so instead of shining a light on ourselves, we all go out and buy a car each. That's why there's 2.5 million private vehicles on the road of Ireland when there's 4.5 million people in the country. So that includes kids and adults, whereas the cars are obviously just for adults. But there's actually very few cars on the road, but you never see anyone hitchhiking. Never. You just don't see it anymore. Where it used to be, as a hitchhiker, you would meet other hitchhikers on the road. You would see them all the time. And the same for car sharing. Yeah. Marcus, EV journey. Electric cars are great, but still too expensive. PHEVs are just expensive and no advantage over pure petrol. It depends on how you use them, but there would be a small advantage on a very short journey. Like when I had I've had a few PHEVs, but any PHEV I've had, if I kept it topped up and charged and just drove around Portlaoise, I never engaged the petrol diesel engine. Not once. Just drive around on batteries all the time. But the frustration for me was every day I would drive a Peugeot 508 PHEV up to Tesco's, over to Aldi, back down home. It would need a charge again. And it's just this constant plugging in. Then you kind of go, I'm fed up doing this. Just fed up. I can't get into the charger. The wife has parked the car at the charger. I can't get near it. And then suddenly it's a hybrid because you're not charging it anymore. Then you have no advantage. Then the advantage is totally gone from PHEV. So PHEV only works if you're willing to charge it every single day. And that means plugging it in, stringing wires out through your window, trying to put weight on your car. You might as well just buy an electric car at that point. It's just so much easier. Honestly, now that I've lived in an electric car for the last 2-3 months, I don't think about it anymore. I really don't. We come home here, just plug in the car when the thing starts dinging on the dashboard, and we plug it out in a few hours. That's it. Works. Zero carbon is impossible, but net zero is doable. Yeah, but we could lower it. We could definitely lower our emissions to a point where we're not just flooding the atmosphere with various kinds of gases. It's not just CO2, obviously. There's more gases than that when you burn things, but it happens. Hydrogen is dead in the water. It's definitely not viable for small transport. David Salmon. I would tend to agree with that, unless we have some mad breakthrough or some sort of crazy stuff starts happening next while. I can't imagine hydrogen really starting to make any difference. A number of companies that were literally sending emails out every day talking about hydrogen have just gone, no, it's just not going to work. When you scale it up, once you push out the size of how much you're going to put out, you're in trouble. When it's on a small scale, you're just doing buses or you're just doing trucks or something, it might be manageable. But when it comes to private vehicles, 2.5 million hydrogen cars on the road, replacing every petrol diesel car, means shutting every petrol diesel selling station down and putting in hydrogen fuel stations and tanks to hold them, and then a whole infrastructure attached to that. Even just forgetting about the fuel itself, just the infrastructure, huge investment. Infrastructure is a big problem at the moment. Even for electric cars, it's very expensive right now. For infrastructure wise, for people putting in fast chargers, 22 kilowatt charger, it's really expensive right now for a business to do that, especially for business that isn't turning over a lot of money. I was in Portlaoise Plaza yesterday for a while, literally in sight of the 2 chargers, and only one car came in the time I was there, and he only stayed for about 15 minutes charging up and left. So getting money from a charger, installing, as a business person, installing a charger and then trying to get money out of it to make money from it is going to take a little while longer. I think there'll be a tipping point where people will seek out those chargers when they go on holidays, but it will require us to open up the bleeding country and get off the 5 kilometre radius for those things to become useful again, as people will want them then, because we'll be travelling all over the country, you know. Owen McDonald's, are there plenty of PHEV cars? There are plenty of PHEV cars. Why not diesel? It's just too expensive, Owen. Simple as that. So the 530i PHEV that I drove the other day, I can't remember the exact price. It was something like 50-something thousand for that car. Whereas the E-Class, PHEV E-Class, which is a 2-litre diesel, it's called a DE, that was €75,000. Because a diesel engine is more expensive than a petrol engine anyway, and then you're adding in a whole other engine, which is the motor, which is the electric part of it. So you've got two engines in there. So when you start off more expensive in the first place, and then you just add in that to it, it just becomes so expensive. Peugeot was the first one, I remember correctly, making a diesel hybrid. I was on the launch of that Peugeot 5008, or was it a 3? I think it was a 3008 diesel hybrid, and that was amazing, absolutely amazing. It did a brilliant job, but it was just so expensive. Maminska's here as well. I'm still leery of forcing 100% electric on very cold climates. Electricity is not efficient for heating, and EVs see a decreased range in very cold areas. Thoughts? They do and they don't. The older ones, yes, a few years back for sure, they were definitely seeing massive vampire draining, massive turning on an electric car when it's frozen solid to defrost is going to use a bit of electricity. But really, I don't know if that's going to be a big problem these days, because most of them, the software update allows it to happen, but currently I can't defrost the car while plugged in from an app. And you can get into the car and start it up and defrost that way while it's plugged in. It draws power from your house at a time, but the decreased ranges is definitely an issue in particularly cold climates, particularly far up. Even Bjorn there does those 1,000. For some reason, he has the patience of his Job to do 1,000 kilometre range charging at both ends. It must cost a bloody fortune, but he's been up and down and doing that, and he sees vampire drain as well. I've noticed that people who live in anywhere north of that, kind of towards the north zone, anywhere up into Finland, Norway, even northern Poland or even northern Germany, are reporting the same sort of thing, a bit of a drain on the battery when it gets very cold. But it is starting to get better and better all the time. If you go back to like Generation 1 Nissan Leaf, you could lose, I don't know, it didn't have much range in the first place. You certainly lose a good chunk of that to vampire drain. Same as the Volkswagen e-Golf, which we did suffer a little bit of drainage here as well. We had that here one year when it was incredibly cold, and we had a really bad winter. For 2 weeks here we had snow and everything. And we did see vampire drain at that point as well. So it is totally possible, but modern yokes don't seem to suffer half as much. Although we did have a problem with the Tesla here. We couldn't open the door, it was frozen. Wouldn't open, but because when I have a Tesla, I don't have the app. They don't give you access to the apps and things, so that's a problem when you have electric cars that rely heavily on the way the app operates and the integration with your phone and things. Because journalists don't get that because they have to register the car to you, and that wouldn't work out. So if I have requested that Tesla or any of the car companies, when they're giving us a press car, can you not hook us up to the app or open up a fake account or something so we can get into the app and see how that works? Because a lot of the things I hear, the problems I have with electric car, are often solved by the app. They're solved within the app somehow or another. You can do it through an app, but you only hear that after a review goes out. Austin Mahoney, I'm not worried about climate change and emissions. We have nuclear energy. Once we figure it out, it's our only hope. We can learn to manage waste. We'd be laughing. The nuclear phobia needs to stop. I agree with the nuclear phobia needs to stop. We've had a couple of nuclear incidents. One of them, of course, being Chernobyl, which we did want that everybody would know about. That was human error and poor management in general. And then the second one was Fukushima, which was in Japan, from a tidal wave hit it and wiped it out, and which has closed down an area. I actually seen on James May did a tour and went into the Fukushima area. So they're the two ones that people think of whenever they're talking about nuclear stuff. But really, essentially, nuclear is quite safe. It's probably the safe future, but it's a bit like, you know, if you want to put up a wind farm in Ireland, you want to put up a rubbish dump in Ireland, you want to put up a high temperature rubbish dump is the one that people are talking about right now, which is going to be built. There's one scheduled to be built in Portlaoise, and already I can see the signs going up going, no dump here now, we don't want to have any of them wasting themselves. But actually these things are so well done, they're so very carefully monitored. There is no hope of this thing emitting the smallest bit of CO2 we'd know about it. It would be instantly out, but yet you will always have resistance to it. So I can imagine the minute people would say, let's put up a nuclear power station, let's do it somewhere in Donegal or something, I guarantee you'd have people cracking up all over the place. It'd be a difficult argument to have. But I agree with you to some degree that I think there is definitely something in the nuclear power range that we could do that would take the effort completely out of this, And then we start to manage the waste part, which is the biggest problem, is the offset of waste, which I think is Sellafield and all at the moment. Yippee, how are you? How is it going? David McCarthy says, the US electric grid grew 5 times larger since the 70s, but most uses is industry, office space, retail, etc. will grow more as EVs hit the street. Well, yeah, that's true. It is industry that tends to drive the electric market, because even in this house, we use less electricity now than we did 5 years ago, as we transferred over everything we could in the house is LED. It's low energy stuff, the lighting. We run our heating comes from gas. We don't have a choice in that. There is only gas installed in the house. We've looked at various stoves and stuff like that over the years, but nothing seems to make much sense. Just it all costs a fortune to do that, because there's no chimney here either. So we have all those problems that go with it. But I think there is a certain amount of lesser electricity we're all using right now. We can all make a difference, but industry is definitely hoovering up a lot of power. Data centers, as was mentioned earlier on, does generate, they need their own power stations. Like at this stage, they really do generate a huge amount of power. Think of the Google systems and the Apple systems and stuff that run all of our lives. They run everything in our lives, all our photographs, all our emails, all our documents. Everything is run through one of those systems. Stuart Kerr says, hi Bob, I think the workplace is changing solution. If you can't home charge, a grant for workplace charges would be ideal. Well, if we had them, see, the problem is we need to have, so free fuel. This is something I has been pointed out to me a couple of times. Mark Turner Smith sent me information as well about banning charging in work, because work was paying for fuel essentially, right? So if you have a job, this is something I come up with a few years ago. If you've got a job and you're giving out company cars, if you give a company car to someone who has an electric car, or they want an electric car, the BIK disappears off them, so that's a benefit straight away into their pocket. And secondly, charging. If you've got a work charger, they can charge in work for free. So that doesn't make any sense. Now, EV Ready here, Des was telling me about the system that they're going to put into place, which allows you to use a fob that you use at home to charge anywhere. So you tap the fob on and off on whatever system you're using, including work, and you'll be billed at home. And that's totally manageable through fleet systems. That's what EV Ready's going to be going for. And that's what I find really interesting when it comes to workplaces, is that the workplaces now definitely need to start looking at charge points in their work and who's paying for it and how much they're paying for it. Because if they're not swapping over their electricity to different places to move them around, they're not going to save any money. So you definitely need to look at that one too. But for work chargers, anything that sort of stuff, we need to have incentive for businesses, always going to push it forward, because if you incentivize a business to buy the cars and to put in the chargers, they become second-hand yokes, and we all start buying them second-hand out of the fleets. And that's where we start to get good value for second-hand cars, including electric cars. So we need to start looking at that for sure. That has to be dealt with, and that's where our Minister of Transport needs to stump up a little bit of effort into that and thinking about that sort of thing. But as for charging in work, it can certainly be done with EV Ready, with the way they're doing it, or with EV Box. The way they're doing it is definitely going to be a smart way to do it. That's all I want, to be honest with you. When I put up to a charge point, I don't want to have to register my details on an app and give it my bank account details and do all that and then click the thing on. I don't want to do that. I don't want to tap a card. I want to use Apple Pay or one of the services, Garmin Pay, Apple Pay, one of them things. Or I want a fob, like the way EV Box is doing it. So I use the fob at home to turn it on and off, and I use the fob out, and I do that. It all happens. So much simpler than this idea of having to create more and more accounts all over the bleeding world as to where you're going, what you're doing. I did see someone who did a drive in a Tesla Model S from Dublin to Moscow. Sent me back some details. I can't say who he is, but he sent me back some details on that, what he did. He had to create, was it 42 accounts or something? Some crazy number of accounts to be able to charge the car in various places, even like hotels. You know, you'd pull into a hotel and plug it in, and you'd still have to register all these details with the box being supplied to the hotel. So it seems insane that we'd even think that this is a good idea. It's not a good idea. It only works if that's the only charge you're going to go to the whole time. It's fine. You create one account and that's it. But if you're going to use multiple different chargers across the country, creating all them accounts is just a pain. It's the hard work. And then there's the data problem with that as well. If someone gets hacked or whatever and all your details get robbed, because hackers don't hack a bank account. What they do is they hack something else, like not even Gmail, that would be too big as well. They hacked something like some photography app you used 5 years ago and you paid for, and you gave them your card details. They hacked that little app because it's lower security, and then they hope that your username and password and details from there is the same as you're using your bank. That's how they use your bank, by the way. Just so you know, that's why you're supposed to change your passwords every once in a while. There are two types of EV customers, says Austin. Those concerned with emissions and sustainability, and those obsessed with range. Yeah, and the other ones who are obsessed with tax. So you're either into the tax or you're into the range or something. Yeah, really is. Like most EV customers, that's the two ends of the scale at the moment. So you've got the older generations who are buying into Minis or Peugeot E208, some of the small little cars. They're also the kind of people who are buying Yaris hybrid, or they're buying smaller little semi-electric cars, let's call them. I won't say that dirty phrase is all hate so much, self-charging. Semi-electric cars. But the other end of the scale is young people who wouldn't have otherwise owned a car are buying into electric cars. So it's in between the two. There's these people that are kind of younger than me and older than me who necessarily aren't buying cars. They're not changing to electric just yet. They're still looking at diesel. Country people still believe they can't have an electric car because they drive too far, when actually they really don't drive that far. They drive about as much as everybody else. European average commute per day is 30 kilometres either direction, 60 kilometres a day. That's it. All across Europe, including Ireland, but 60 kilometres, which is, for my electric car, is, if I was to do that every day, I would charge the car maybe once or twice a week. That's pretty much it. That would cost me about a £5 charge. So about a tenner to do my weekly commute if I was doing that kind of commute all the time. So it's a lot cheaper than you think it is. Carsten changed the name. Good man. See, that's how you take the deal. Andrew Breen, just back from a walk around Mondello, open Sunday, Saturday to the public. It's my 5k waiting for a new car and grand. Oh, damn, I'd love it was inside my 5k. Go for a stroll around Mondello Park. Actually, the amount of people out today, forget about 5k. There's so many people out in the roads around today. Social distancing fell apart. As people were running by and walking by, and they're just mad. It's gas to look at how things have changed in the last few days. I think people are going to come out of this damaged. I think there's going to be a few months of us all trying to figure out how to talk to people again. I mean, face-to-face conversation. And I also think there's a lot of, in the back of people's mind, there's a lot of doubt as to whether this is ever going to end. And I tell you, it is going to end. It will. Things will change a little bit, but it'll definitely end. We will definitely get back to some sort of average, normal, daily routine of stuff. So don't panic. Be okay. We'll always be here together at some point anyway. Niall Power says, Sam Bob, have a good week. No problem, Niall. Steve McCormick, the MG ZS EV had a rust scare when it came out first. Would be interesting to get under and have a look, but I suspect they've quietly improved it. You said that. I'm going to be under the car in 20 minutes. Having a look. I thought there was rust on it. I go mad. I don't think there is though. It's been inspected by ecocars.ie. It's actually on their website, by the way. If you want to actually look at my car, it's on their website. Price and all. HRV, heat recovery ventilation, isn't rocket science. You've got an aluminium core with louvers. The warm, stale air passes over the cool, fresh air, warming it. Only 10 to 15 watts to run 2 fans. See, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Simple steps to lower household energy consumption. 1. Insulate. 2. Seal. 3. Heat recovery ventilation. When then deal with whatever minimal heat requirement may or may not be left. Fair enough. I'm sealed and I have the insulation bit done. Don't have heat recovery though. Paul Dunn, do you think your daughters will learn to drive in a manual transmission car like you say at Leon when they turn 17, or do you just use an electric car for the driving test? I would say by the time they're old enough, so Sophie is 13, going on 13 this year. It's not very far away. I still think there'd be manual cars around. See, the problem is we don't the recycling of the car. So when the car is bought brand new and then it becomes second hand, it's still very slow for electric cars to be pushed into that market. So in 5 years time, I don't see a huge amount of electric cars being up for second hand sale, because that's how long people hold on. 5 to 8 years how long people hold on to cars. So I don't know whether we'll have enough cars on the road that's going to happen. I think we will get to a point, there'll be a little bit of a tipping point where we'll see the end of manual cars, just manual 6-speed box cars, but they're still very efficient, lads. If you look at the way manual cars work, they're very, very efficient. And the way licensing systems work, manual cars are, if you learn to drive and pass your test in a manual car, you can drive manual and automatic. If you pass it in automatic, you can only drive automatics. How many automatic second-hand cars are there? So a young person looking for cheap insurance is going to look for small engine. How many small engine cars out there are automatic? You know, they're not very efficient when they're automatic anyway. Where was I? I haven't turned the heat on in my Castleknock home for 3 years. It's never been colder than 20 degrees. It's cross 13. See, heat recovery now. That could be the way to be all looking at stuff. We should all be doing it. Craig Breen finished 4th this weekend. That's not bad again. He does stuff out there and no one knows what he's doing. Very little support in Ireland, in fairness. None of the race drivers, Max Hart, Craig Breen, any of those guys. We have race drivers. James Dean is someone who emailed me about that the other day. Was it I can't remember. Someone emailed me the other day going, never heard of James Dean until you mentioned him on your podcast. I go, oh yeah. He's number one drift in the world, a multi-millionaire, wins everything in the US. No one even hears of him here. It's weird, isn't it? Clover Video says, hi Bob, I read the story about changing a classic VW Beetle to EV power only. Have you thought about reviewing this type of conversions as segment on your channel? I have. There's a company in Wicklow does it, but they don't really have a lot of cars and they don't really do a lot of press. I've emailed them a couple of times, but I don't really hear much of a response on them, whether they want to do it or not. I'd like to do it, yeah, of course, but it is very expensive. You would only be able to do it to a classic car that's already worth a fair whack of cash. You know, I see on websites you can do it from like €900, but that doesn't really include the battery, and it's very hard to get batteries. So most people say get an old Nissan Leaf battery, but there's not many of them around. So doing the conversion still is going to be a bit of a slow burner for conversion, that sort of stuff, over until there's enough parts around to do it. That's parts is the biggest issue. Paul O'Connor says, how many here are listening and cleaning cars at the same time? I love that. You can't say all about cleaning cars. Look at the car. Don't mention my car. Don't talk about my car. Don't want to clean the cars. I'd like to do a bit of cleaning cars. I love that. What I love, you know, a summer's day was nice and warm, and you wash the car and then you polish the whole car from start to finish. Not in direct sunlight, don't do it in direct sunlight, but polish the whole car from top to toe, and it finishes and it's beautifully shiny and it's all lovely and clean, and you get little tiny detailed spots out of it. That kind of stuff on a summer's day, oh yeah. Possibly involves a bottle of beer. No drink driving, but possibly a bottle of beer afterwards. Tony S. Bob, if a new producer makes a genuine design pure EV Saab, it would be very interesting. Had a Saab 2.5 V6 in the mid-90s drop beautifully, a suspension perfect. Saab made some of the best cars on earth. Very, very, very interesting to see where they're going to go with it. I don't know if it's going to happen, but my predictions suggest that with Chinese companies and Indian companies looking to get into Europe, the best way to do it would be to come through in a way that already exists. What MG did, it's run by a Chinese company, but actually they just took over an established brand. So you already situate your brand into a point. So I think Saab will be the next one, because Saab was around for a long time. The other ones as well, you could do like Rover or something. You could do that, but they don't have a great history. So Saab would have an ultimate history for sure. David Cuddy wonders why he gets banned off things. Then he comes in and says, I'd invest in Asian porn. If you haven't seen David Cuddy's stuff, you should go over to Instagram or Snapchat. He's there too, and look at some of his stuff. It does make me laugh on a daily basis. Thomas Deepore says, is the e-scooter the future city transport, and why the UK is slow at legalising privately owned e-scooters? Renting an e-scooter is legal in the UK. The legalities behind it has been run by business. This is the problem. If you go down to Barcelona, people come at you in herds on those e-scooters, because you can rent them out from companies. Leaf or Lyft or there's some company out there that does it. There's a few of them at it. And then you're strolling on a road and you look into a river, and there'll be one inside the river as well, just sitting there. There's so many of them around. The problem is that the desire for them is from young people who want alternative transport. I would suggest we need them for the final mile situation, where if you're going to, I don't know, if you have a meeting in some business estate or somewhere in the middle of a town, and you go to your charge point, plug in your car for a charge, and you still have a couple of kilometres to the meeting, that's where the electric scooter comes in. Just take it out of the boot and off you go. They're tiny, and you can carry them into buildings with you as well. So they're awesome things, but we need to start investing in them like properly and making proper rules and regulations around them, and being clear advice. Like, I'm not saying put in helmets or you have to have gloves on you and none of that stuff. Just say they are legal, put them on the road, this is the full horsepower they can have, this is the maximum speed limit they can go. After that, you're on your own. That's exactly what we need to do, and it needs to happen very quickly. This dragging our feet on stuff while legislation takes another year to come into place is just going to be the end of them, you know. Steve McCormick says, I don't have a car anymore. I would never get another one. It would only be electric. That's a lot of people are going that way as well. Google reviewer says, are you going to test ride the Polestar 2 anytime soon? No, probably not. There's no Polestar support in this country. They're very expensive here. They're being brought in by importers. Probably would be on a smaller scale anyway. Worldwide, Polestar is not going to make a big hit. They look good, but I mean, why isn't it called a Volvo Polestar? Like, it just looks like an S60. I've seen them here in Ireland, right? Dave is here as well. Afternoon, Bob. I'm driving instructor and always planning on going automatic. So now I only got an ID3. I do roughly 120 miles a day, so hopefully it'll be fine. 120, yeah, you'd be fine with that one. That was grand. As a driving instructor, teaching an electric car, I suppose, is going to be a lot easier. I don't know whether... I'm sure it's easier than working a clutch, right? We're just in a time of change. Like, the first cars that were ever out didn't have a clutch pedal on the floor. The accelerator was a handle on the side like tractors, and the gear shift wasn't this one over here. It was outside the car, and it was all kinds of, like, we had to learn all that as well. Then manual cars started to get that normal kind of layout that we're all used to, and that transferred on into automatic cars that kept the kind of layout but took away the gearbox and the clutch. And then American markets just seem to run with automatics almost completely. They do sell manuals, but just in a very small sense. And we're the ones, the European ones, are the ones still pushing the manual one. Automatics are coming, and automatics are quite efficient these days. And of course, electric cars don't even have a gearbox, so it's not even an automatic. It's just forward and back. That's really it. Essentially, it's just literally D to go forward and R to go backwards. But it's the same as the drive shaft, just going backwards. William Hayes says, Bob, you can like the video if you watch the video from your TV. Just press 3 dots on your remote and that will give you the option to like the video. There you go. There's advice for that. Umbria says, do you think compact cars like the Toyota Corolla would disappear in favour of electric crossovers? No, they won't. Corolla still, you look at sales of Corolla worldwide, it's still right up there near the top of it. It's one of those unusual cars that keeps on selling no matter what. We get it by default here. That's the main difference. It just happens to come in here as well. But Corolla is very popular here. It ends up being, I think it was the best-selling car last year, as far as I know. It was at least in the top 3. France stopped building nuclear power stations in favour of renewables, and it increased their carbon emissions because they had to rely on fossil fuels to fill the gaps when it wasn't windy or sunny. Yeah, it does. Well, France is a bigger country in that respect, so they have more place to put things. When they come to Ireland, we'd have to put nearly offshore, like just to make room for a nuclear power station, which is essentially what the UK did with Sellafield. They closed that down and turned it into something else, I think. Steve McCormick says, big problem with nuclear is we don't trust the people running them. Corporations, government tend to neglect long term. Who watches the watchman? That's the problem. That's always the problem, really. The problem is we buy cars and we buy cars and we don't use them fully. We throw them away. That happens. Yes, we end up either recycling them or just dumping them, which also happens, which is terrible. We shouldn't really be doing that. We should be buying things for long term. We should always buy in the long term. The best solution is a Tesla route, large battery storage. That would be handy. That would be probably the best way right now, but I'm not sure it's the only route, but there's certainly many routes. If you look at the press releases that come out on a daily basis, everybody wants everything right now. There's a massive race still on to who's going to supply the most electric cars on the road, and the race is only starting, boys. We're only in like lap 1 of a marathon. Send the waste far away in space. I always dreamed of that, and we did investigate for a long time the space elevator idea, which has been around for ages. We also investigated on just dumping our stuff into the sun, which is, shooting it into the sun. I just don't think we could get enough. We generate too much waste. We need to just cut down the amount of waste, and then we don't have to worry about where we're going to put it. Garrett says, Bob, in the UK government is talking about forcing all charging networks to switch to a simple payment method like your debit card. No more RFID cards, no membership, nothing, just pay, charge and go. It's already rolling out, Garrett. I've seen Johnny Smith said it somewhere. I forget where. Anyway, he said to me somewhere that he just used his bank card, tap and go. 2 things I want to happen. One is the price you're paying for electricity should be on the forecourt, should be outside the forecourt at the front. I know you might pay a different rate on the inside, but you should have at least an idea how much the electricity is that they're charging there. And 2, it should come up on a screen of the charging unit how much you just paid for your electricity. Shouldn't be left to your bill at home. You shouldn't be going dink and then walking away and not knowing how much you actually paid. You should know exactly how much you paid. I know some of this does work from the app, but there's bits of it that need to be accelerated to be done very, very quickly, and instead of this kind of messing around stuff that we're doing right now, bits of this and some parts of that. Damon McGee says, Honda Civic hatchback 2022, any updates on hybrid options? I don't know what Honda's going to do. I think bringing out another hybrid right now is probably a bad idea, but Honda don't have a lot of choice at the moment. I think we really need to start moving towards electricity for Honda. They've done the Honda, which is lovely, but very short range. They need to do something Civic pure electric would be good, I think. But no updates as of yet, no. Ross Hodgson says, hi Bob, I'm a Seat Arona Auto. I'm getting around 33 miles per gallon in town and 44 miles per gallon motorway. I'm looking at MG ZS EV or the MG HS exclusive auto, 1.5 auto. I don't know petrol or EV in town. EV, 100%. EV will do exactly what you want there 100% of the time. Doesn't necessarily have to be MG. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it, but you will easily replace what you got to electricity right now. Honestly, 50,000 kilometers a year is totally possible on EV if you're determined enough. 30,000 kilometers a year is probably realistic for any EV, and anything less than that, particularly around town, and any of the EVs that are on the market today will do it, including Renault Zoe or any of those cars at the affordable end of the thing. Congratulations everybody, we've made it. It's 5 minutes over. We did 5 minutes more than we should have, which is terrible, isn't it? Really a run over again. We always run over though at some point. It's been a hugely entertaining day. Lovely to have you along. Don't forget to click on the evready.ie, who has been here all along, watching everything and telling us what's going on. Des and the team up there have done absolutely brilliant work. There is their logo splashing up on the screen again in a wonderful way. evready.ie. Get onto them and click in. And next week I'll be meeting up as well, and we'll be doing some more video work and stuff about charging and what units we have and what you can build and what's going into your house and positions it's going to live in and all that stuff that everybody asks about. I want a charge point. How to put a charge point in? Done. You know what I mean? It'd be lovely to have you along again next Sunday, because we'll be back here next Sunday. We do a Sunday service every week during lockdown. Never miss one during lockdown. Last year I did a Sunday service every week for 6 months. So it's here and it happens all the time. And it'd be absolutely brilliant to have you along again next week. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much for all the support you sent today, all the PayPals and Super Chats and Patrons, which you can also do as well. Patreon and channel memberships are there as well if you want to get into those. You'll find me on TikTok. Like I said earlier on the show, I'll have a new merch out next week, which will be this stuff, hoodies and hats and scarves and all kinds of stuff you can buy from next week as well, and some cool stickers and things for your cars. That'll be on bobflavin.com, which I'm just setting up at the moment, so that's coming soon. I'm grand with that as well. It should be okay. I hope. It's going to cost a bleeding fortune, but it'll be okay to set it up. It's done locally here as well. We're doing it all locally. There's a clothing company here in Portlaoise that's going to look after all the printing and all of this. Is actually embroidered, by the way. That's not printed. That's embroidered. It's meant to be BF written on my chest there. So that was designed by two lads up in Newbridge. So it's all been terribly local, and it's been real good fun for the last few months trying to organise all this together. Later on in the year, if lockdown allows, I will be doing a road trip, which will be a destination road trip. Bob's weekend away sort of thing, which will have limited spaces, but we're going to bring people away for a little bit of a spin on that one, and you're all invited if you want to. Now I'll put out tickets for that, but it all depends on lockdown and if we ever get out of this situation we're in. It'll be brilliant. So that will happen later on in the year, but at the very least we'll have some sort of a meet-up when lockdown ends anyway, be it a car park somewhere. I don't care, it doesn't matter. But we'll figure out what to do when we get there. Thank you very, very much for joining me today. Look after yourselves the rest of the week. Remember, get some exercise, get outside, get to the blue sky, go wash your car, go for a little spin around, do something that gets you out of the house, out of your head, and away from social media and off your phones. Don't get too hung up on things. Look after yourselves, and until the next time, I will see you on the far side.